Hello. Can you guys hear me? Am I being massively overpowered by this sick-ass Spark Mandrill remix? Excellent. Are y'all ready? As they would say in the 90s, y'all ready for this? Ta-da! We're gonna get those hacker bastards! Or my name isn't Kirbopher15! Whoo! I bet you weren't expecting this, were ya? So as you may or may not expect, huge shout out as always to GermGen, who was kind enough to make all of my other previous VTuber models, and this one was no exception. I did not even ask for this one. He just made this for me. I think it was an April Fool's thing, and it wasn't. I think it wasn't fully finished, and he just kind of did it of his own accord. But yeah, this is real. This is happening. I can't believe it's really Kirbopher15 from the famous internet animation TvTome Adventures, like from Newgrounds. Oh, wow. Yeah, wow. Well, I thought this would be a nice little enhancement to what's going to be a very interesting stream today. So, goodness. All right, I guess let's get into the meat of this. Or well, not the meat of this. Let me give you a rundown of what the hell's going on. Let me play some Mega Man 7 music in the background here. All right. So those of you who don't already know or haven't been keeping up, it's the year 2000X. Dr. Wily has finally been defeated. No. So I have been, in the last couple months or so, I have been uploading archives of the original TvTome Adventures animated series that I did on Newgrounds from 2004 to 2007. And I did 73 episodes and a movie, which covered, you know, quite a long chunk of story, and did that for several years of my life. And of course, this paved the way for the inevitable later on the 2011 animated series that I did after college from 2011 to 2015. And then that paved the way for the Terrain of Magical Expertise RPG that I made, I worked on from 2017 to 2021. It's about to turn 2 years old in just a week or two, actually. So, yeah, TTA, as it became known, was the very first incarnation of Kirbopher, Alpha, Zetto, Flame Girl, Nylok, Game Crazed, you know, all the characters that you know and hopefully love. I made it in, you know, with edited sprites of mostly Mega Man characters and the like, you know. Did that for quite a long time, and it was my first, you know, long-term animation project, basically. But those of you who are hardcore fans that followed the show back in the day or learned about it afterward, I finished the third season, which ended at episode 73, and sadly, the series was canceled after that, and I never did the fourth season. However, today, I am here to provide to you all a deep dive of the Season 4 that never was. The remainder of what the TTA story was going to be here for you on this post-series Q&A. This is going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to do the best that I can. Oh, hey. Da-na, da-na, da-na-na, da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. Yeah. So, sorry, I couldn't help myself. Yeah, I'm going to be going mostly off of memory, because a lot of the nuts and bolts of it are still in my brain after 18 years. TTA turned 18 years old yesterday. I cannot believe that shit. So, good lord. But here we are, and I do also have a few files from my old archive that I dug up, where I have some episode titles and summaries and information and various things. Some of it is from old character profiles that I wrote that were intended for all of the new guys, all the new characters that were going to show up in the series and otherwise, and some stuff that has been out there previously, that like really hardcore fans know, and some stuff that's never been released before. Truth be told, way back in 2007, I actually did an episode of a podcast that will not be named, that was dedicated to me doing a Q&A about what the rest of the show is going to be. That is lost to time. I don't think that there is any archive of that, and honestly, I wouldn't even want people to hear that anyway, because it was 2007 and I was probably a crass little piece of shit. So, but this is kind of going to be the next level of that, more or less. And we'll see if hopefully my memory holds up, but I do have specific things that I'm going to be speaking of. In addition, I will say that thanks to some lovely folks on my Patreon, which is patreon.com/Kirbopher, I am also going to be answering some questions that were submitted from people who submitted questions on that page, which was very kind of folks to do so. I will say, and I'm going to make this plug the one last time, and I'm going to have a pinned comment for this in here. If you would like to ask a TTA question to be answered live on stream, subscribe to my Patreon and ask it on the thread linked there. There we go. Alright, so, you still have an opportunity while we're here. Legit, if you would like to still ask a question, I don't mind if it's like, as late as, as we're starting here. So, I will keep an eye on the thread. And I will say that, just, in regards to plugging myself, it literally, if you even become as little as like a $1 patron, you are helping to fund all of my future animation projects. You're helping me to pay my rent and just make my livelihood. So literally, even just $1 a month, if you join right now and you make a comment, like as we're going through this stream, you can leave a comment. And you'll have access to other cool things, like Kerblogs that will release early and other various things. And if you're feeling so kind as to want to become a $3 or $10 patron, you will get more rewards than that. So, but otherwise, yeah, let's. God, where do I start? I'm literally trying to even think, like, where do I even begin with? Okay, so Season 4 of TTA would have covered episodes 074 all the way up to 100. I had done quite a bit of planning, for... I did kind of a mix of planning quite a bit of stuff ahead of time and having some things kind of just happen on the fly as I was writing the episodes. Because unlike, say, the 2011 series or, say, the RPG, where generally the whole entire story was laid out and several episodes were written ahead of time, in the case of TTA, I had the general storyline planned, but I would write the episodes like one after another as I went along and did them, basically. So I had a plan for what was going to happen with everything, but I didn't I didn't necessarily, in fact, episode 74 was actually the only one that I got started writing on. And as some of you who may have seen the April Fool's joke that I did, a couple years ago, that part of that little, beginning of it, that before it turned into a whole, ridiculous, thing with Faxel and the Mario World music, that was the real script. Legit. That was the actual, unfinished chunk of the script. And there was a little bit more after that, too. But I don't even think I finished the entire episode. And I'll get into why I stopped, probably at the end of all this, because that'll be, more appropriate for after it's over. But, so, I'm going to start speaking with a level of, if you're listening to this, whether you're watching live or, seeing the archive of this, that you are already educated and caught up on everything that happened in the show from the full 3 seasons that were released. So I will pick up from there. Basically, so I guess really it all kind of starts off with the villain, which is Dark Eyes of Anubis, the 7th Net King. Dark Eyes was a character that was implied, kind of in the shadows for quite a long time. I had teases of him literally since the first season when they meet the Net Kings, and we learn about some kind of mysterious person that created Kagemaru, and supposedly created the debug as well. And he would have been the creator of the 3rd, final, and most powerful virus in the virtual world, the X virus. So, my whole intention for Dark Eyes is that he was a very, very gifted genius programmer and creator and technological sort of wizard, but he was a madman. He was just an absolute insane person. Like the Net Kings, I've always had be, very eccentric people. Dark Eyes was meant to be, just an insane person. Just absolutely out of his mind. I would imagine that part of why also it was so easy for them to just simply fire him after the Kagemaru incident happened, that, it might have been because there was a strained relationship. Like, they kept him on board the team because he was so extremely talented at, helping them out. But ultimately, he was, not welcome. He was not part of that family, and especially when it came to Motherboard. I would imagine that maybe he didn't have that familial kind of relationship with Motherboard the way that the other Net Kings did, you know what I mean? Which, of course, that's a relationship that carried through to 2011. But Dark Eyes had this insane plan. This insane, horrible, horrible plan. Which I believe was titled Project Anubis. He had this plot where as Tome grew in popularity, the virtual reality game in the universe of TTA, just to clarify what I mean by that, and he grew even more and more and more after being fired from that job to hate not only humanity, but specifically what technology had done to humanity. And Plan.net, which was this it had been talked about a little bit in the series before. It was this global company that had this. It provided this a lot of funding and also this server that connected the entire world into Tome. And so because of that, Dark Eyes wanted to take his revenge on the entire world and teach humanity a lesson by delivering this massive blow of what would have been either the straight up death or at least pain caused to millions of people, because the implication is that it was played by millions of players all over the world. He wanted to create this with the usage of his virus. He wanted to create this synaptic seizure flash that would have happened, that would have sent the millions of players into a coma. And he was slowly but surely cultivating the kind of core of the X virus, which was this character named Sira, who I'll get to a little bit later on, to eventually be grown into this, very, very destructive force that would have, inflicted this on all of the players in Tome, and gone down in the history books, certainly as a serial killer as a result of that. And if that's not bizarre enough, so since his viruses, as you had seen, these characters, of course, had this inexplicable, crazy ability to hurt players in real life. That if you die in the game, you die for real type thing that you're so used to from at least TTA in 2011. He was the one that programmed that ability into the viruses, more or less. And so, thank you, Max Buxton, for the $1 subscription to my Patreon. Really appreciate it. He created a special modded version of the VR headset that the players of Tome would use. And I believe I titled it the Danger Helmet, where instead of this happening through the viruses, it would have, in and of itself, given the player who wears it to experience sensations through their brain. The things that would happen in the game, they would actually feel it. Instead of it, needing the data of Kagemamoru or the debug or X to make it work, was kind of the whole idea behind that. And Dark Eyes, through whatever insane way he would have been able to do this, perhaps maybe with the help of his equally psychotic assistant. By the way, guys, please keep in mind the fact that when I came up with all this stuff, I was a teenager. So please expect a whole lot of cringe in just everything that I'm talking about. So if that doesn't, speak for itself. He captured, literally, I believe it was 3 men and 3 women, and attached them to these devices that would hook them into the game, and they were forced to be his underlings. So these very troubled, very unfortunate people that were forced to do his bidding. Basically, it was tremendously messed up. He would let them, go to the bathroom and feed them. He basically kept these poor human beings trapped in his basement. Really, really tremendously fucked up. You can certainly look at the realism of, wow, how would that have been possible? I was a teenager when I came up with this. I'm sure that as I, dug into the nuts and bolts of writing the episodes, maybe I would have delved a little bit more into the specifics of how that would have gone or whatever. Who can say? I don't know. But nonetheless, so that created the Guild of Anubis, which was our new bad guy organization. We had the 2 different versions of the Debug Org, we had the Purple Flame, and then we would have had the Guild of Anubis. Those would have been our bad guys of Season 4, basically. Led by Dark Eyes of Anubis himself. So, I'm going to talk individually about each of the members of those, of that group, as we kind of go through the individual episodes and what was going to happen in each of them. So, we'll go through that. So I guess with that said, let's talk about the episodes themselves. So, Season 4 would have been split into 3 different arcs, much like how some of the previous seasons were. So, episodes 74 through 85 was the Virus Wave arc. Episodes 86 through 96 would have been, and I'll explain this later, the Newgrounds arc. I will explain, I promise. And the 4-part series finale, which would have been episodes 97 through 100, was the X-Virus arc. So let's jump in. Alright, episode 074, the Virus arc. The Virus Horde, excuse me, I'm saying arc too many times. Episode 74, the Virus Horde. So you guys got a little bit of a taste of what was going to happen in this from the April Fool's thing that I put out. So Faxel would have, after disappearing and fleeing away from, the events of the Season 3 finale, would have headed far, 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 far off the coast of the main sort of, island of Tome. And he would have wound up on what was, and this was teased a little bit, the 4th, or rather, so we had, Purple Cave, Mech Valley, and Sanctuary were the 3 different regions in the Tome world. And also, I think also, what was it? Edoland, right? Yeah, Edoland was the other one, the 4th one that had Rob Starr's mansion in it. So, the original first sort of beta testing region of Tome was Newgrounds. Named, certainly so, after the website of the same name. And I'll explain why that is in a little while, but yes, that is in fact the case. Newgrounds in TTA would have basically been this just, flat, generic kind of, sandy, dusty, wasteland kind of area, nothing too crazy. Just a very basic kind of area that they built just to test various things when the Net Kings were kind of in the early stages of making the game and everything. And they left it as it was, just far, far out in the virtual sea, in the nothingness sort of void of the virtual universe, over at the edge. And so that is, in fact, where Dark Eyes of Anubis was able to access and build his secret headquarters. Basically, underneath that little sandy, island area, would have been this giant sort of labyrinthian, kind of a little bit like the Motherboard maze, but more like a proper sort of fortress with this inner sanctum, this giant pyramid. Which we'll get to more of that when we get to the later arc. But yeah, so and yes, I'm reminded by in the chat by Masquerade. Yes, Ground Zero, which was kind of the special sort of name for TTA Season 4. It was TTA Ground Zero, was in reference to Newgrounds being the Area Zero, original sort of place, right? So Faxel appears at Newgrounds and he encounters the first of the specific characters that I'm going to talk about, a character named Kaza. Created as by the power of the X-Virus and given the form of a user, Kaza acts as the general of the Guild of Anubis, leading the battalions of X-Virusites on their attacks. Kaza's weapon looks and starts out as a normal katana, but has the ability to absorb character data and transform into different states, themed around the appropriate user it steals power from. For instance, slashing Flamey will turn the blade into a sword of fire, a cut against Alpha would make the hilt shaped like the Orion shield, or a Nihilok or Kirbopher would simply make a more powerful version of their already established sword. Kaza is not based on, much like the other characters were based on users that I knew from the TTA, or the TvTome forums and other places like that. He was an original character built from the ground up specifically for this. So he was a virus, AI kind of character built from the X-Virus. His name comes from the file sharing network Kaza, which if any of you listening are old enough to even know what the fuck that is, it was a sort of downloading torrent type program that was used for a lot of pirating back in the 2000s, and it was notorious for almost always inevitably infecting the user's computers with viruses. It was more known for infecting your computer with viruses than it was for being good for downloading stuff, basically. So, Yeah, exactly. Yes, that's exactly what it was. Yeah. So I thought, oh, what a fitting name for a virus character, basically. So, and as seen in the intro sequence, he would have later formed a rivalry with Zetto, and going so far as to even cut off the Net King's metal arm, leading up to how Zetto receives his new arm and his new outfit. And his loyalty to Dark Guys truly shows during the final battle, where he fights up until there is nothing but a floating head and a piece of torso left of his digital body. So we'll cover some of those things as we go on. That's the basic overall view of him. So Faxel would have appeared there, and Kaza was about to lead a battalion of the basically cannon fodder X-virus monsters, which I call the X-virusites. Kind of a combination of virus and parasite. He was leading them to their first raid on Tome, where he just would have brought in like a whole swarm of these enemies to just try to attack the virtual world. Why? For any particular purpose? Because it was considered cool and made for a scary episode plot that involved lots of battles, and to send a warning to the Net Kings to make their presence known. Any kind of generic-ass, uninventive, motivation that wasn't very strong. any number of those things it could have been. So that was where that was starting off. The X-Virus sites, these little kind of heartless-looking, black and green glowy sort of things. A lot of like X-shaped sort of imagery to them. They're kind of cute. Creatures are essentially the cannon fodder of the Guild of Anubis and their main weapon during their various raids upon Tome's main servers. While not incredibly strong on their own, their strength in numbers can decimate virtual reality itself. A group large enough could destroy an entire region of Tome in a few short minutes. So that was kind of the setup there. Meanwhile, the Net Kings, by this time, and I forget how many months had passed. I'm trying to remember again. Another month had passed since the end of Season 3, so it was shortly after that. The Net Kings were trying to cleanse Game Crazed's new sort of redemption body that he was given by the power of the debug, trying to cleanse him of that power and remove it from him, basically. And it did not seem to be working. For whatever reason, they were not able to remove the virus from his character. And so, GC just sort of had to accept, like, well, I guess this is just sort of how it's going to go for me now, and I'll have to, live with this as I continue to play the game and everything, because, who knows if, what happened before is the last threat we'll have to deal with. I have a note here that says Rory would have spoken of Zetto's possible return, so I guess that meant that it would have been implied as early as the beginning of the season that, hey, Zetto may be allowed to come back to play the game after all, after he, helped us out with that whole motherboard incident that happened a little while ago. But he would not have been back in the game just yet. So the virus horde would have attacked, and I'm sure there would have been probably lots of footage of, our heroes and maybe some of their friends fighting these new enemies, maybe being overwhelmed by how strong they are compared to any of the enemies they'd faced before. And I have notes here for Kaza versus Kirbopher15 and Kaza versus Alpha. So I don't know if these would have necessarily been grade battles like many of them were in the show, or if it would have been just like, regular, just the sprites attacking each other and etc., etc. I imagine that Kaza would have certainly absorbed some of their essences to, give his sword new appearances and everything like that. A little bit of just an establishment of, okay, here's the new threat, here's what our heroes are in for, and just how some of that is going and everything. So that would have been the opening episode. Let me look at a little bit of our questions real quick. Let's see. Crete asked, was GC's mind fused with the game when he said, I'm just a virus? So not in the sense that he couldn't leave the game. He was still a player. He didn't have his subconscious like removed like what happened with Eriko. I guess I never was totally clear on that with the end of season 3, but no, he was in fact still he was still a human being, like with his mind, secured and everything. So there's that. Superfighter064 asked about what was Dark Eye's motivation and goal, which I've talked about a little bit in that sense. So there's that. And would the main cast have gotten design changes for season 4? And yes, I think, however, that only a few of them were going to get new outfits. Zetto, I'll talk about his soon because I remember exactly what the deal with his was. Alpha, people have seen his outfit, which you can see it literally on the image behind me, where it's like the kind of tattered t-shirt and everything. And I think it literally even would have been just that like he just would have gained those gloves, and the jacket that he wore for his season 3 outfit would have been gone. Kirbopher would have gone back to his original like Link/Sword Kirby hat. I only wanted to have the backwards cap for season 3 specifically, so he would have gone back to that previous outfit. Nylock, I think I did consider, because some people remember during the season 3 episodes, I thought about giving him black armor, and I thought about maybe even having him have that for season 4, because he had red armor in season 1, blue armor in season 2, and green armor in season 3. But the green armor just worked really, really well for him. And as you guys have seen, the green armor is what's lasted for him for the whole rest of every other incarnation of Tome. So I don't know. Maybe I wouldn't have necessarily changed Nylock's outfit. Ruri did not get one. GC would have stuck as his redemption form. Crash would have kept his look as it was. And Flame Girl at some point would have gotten some kind of tattered version of her outfit. I'll probably get to that at some point a little bit later on. There's some stuff with her that it's stupid, whatever. So yeah, there was that. Yeah, I think that those were all of them, from what I can remember. So, yeah, okay, so that should be good for the time being. I'll come back, and again, I'm keeping an eye on if there's any new questions that come in, but I'll jump back and forth to him, as there's any ones that come up specifically. So, all right, episode 075, Legendary Swordsman. So, one season 4 character that was teased a little tiny bit in the second season of TTA was a character that I named Flashblade. Those of you who may not remember what he looked like, he had green hair and a long jacket and a very long, crazy, like Final Fantasy kind of buster sword. Flashblade was Kirbopher's teacher from back during his early days in Tome. Flashblade's user happened to be dragged into Dark Eye's plans and ends up being forced into the position of an enemy for the main characters. So he would have been captured by Dark Eyes, and in a sad twist of fate, he would have had to become an enemy of our heroes and everything, and particularly of Kirbopher. And I always envisioned him as being pretty silent, like he was a man of very, very few words, but whatever he said was, very, very important and very impactful, of course. And I also imagined that his attacks were similar to that of kind of like Mihawk from One Piece, where, his techniques are just like very, very powerful shock waves and sword slashes and things like that. So, and actually, funnily enough, so, I'll talk a little bit about this, and then I'm going to get more into this with kind of the oncoming episodes. So, much like, and again, most of you know this, the majority of the characters in Tome were all originally based, with some exceptions that were built specifically from the ground up as just characters for the cartoon. But most of them were based on users that I met on a message board, TvTome, in like 2002 or 3, and I took their screen name and reinterpreted it, there we go, Chris, into a character design. Some of them I changed to, befit, like I mentioned examples such as Big Scary Tyranitar I turned into T-Bones, but you can see the little bits of Tyranitar in his design, throughout the ages. There were, and by the way, sorry, because I'm seeing a few people in the chat asking questions that don't have to do with this. I'm focusing entirely on stuff about TTA for this stream, so I'm not addressing other questions about other stuff that's unrelated to that. Just so you know, so just putting that out there for you guys. Nonetheless, so the season 4 characters in particular were based more on people that I had met a little bit later after the folks that I had met on TvTome. Different people that had influenced me or that I had gotten to know and worked with in various capacities from a couple years later in the early 2000s in my, kind of ventures on the internet and everything. And one of those people who I have now since worked with, and he's a friend. We haven't talked in a long time, but I consider him a friend, and he's a colleague and a fellow animator, and he was a big influence on me. And that is Joseph Blanchett, Legendary Frog. He is a Flash animator that was huge on Newgrounds in the early 2000s. He's currently, he does like D&D podcasts and stuff with a bunch of his friends, and he's done animations for like Cinema Snob and different things. A lot of the stuff he was known for was what's it called? The One Ring to Rule Them All series. And some of his own original characters, Kerrigan, and some of these other original characters of his that were very cute. He was a lot of fun. He made some really, really fun, cute cartoons. And he also, later on, when I met him, was an animator on the Nintendo collabs. He did the Tetris, like soap opera thing. He did the Diddy and Dixie thing. He did Marth, in front of the blank screen, a couple other ones. So Flashblade was based on Legendary Frog, Joe Blanchett. Specifically, and it's funny because he even said, like, I hate to admit this, but he's told me this in confidence. He's like, I bet that if you had asked me back then, I probably would have said no to voicing him just because I was such a snob and I was such a recluse. And I'm like, I don't know if I would have taken offense to that. But yeah, so he's been a good sport about that. And funnily enough, a little bit of trivia, the character Maximor in the Tome RPG is actually a very highly remixed version of Flashblade. Repurposed to be Nylok's former mentor character instead of Kirbopher's. So that was the spirit of Flashblade kind of lived on as the character Maximor, which I think honestly was a far more interesting usage of that kind of idea anyway. So well, kind of worked out in the end. So my notes for episode 75, Legendary Swordsman, are Legendary Frog tries to find Webmaster for some kind of purpose. If I had to guess, perhaps for some kind of access, ability or something like that. I recall that in the TTA movie, Flux was trying to capture Webmaster in order to seize his editing privileges somehow. Something like that. I don't know. But he was seeking out Webmaster for a particular purpose. That was his mission for that episode. There was no raid happening, I think, for that one. I have in my note here that Bokuden, one of the new characters, apparently would have had some kind of fight with Flashblade at the beginning of the episode. So, Bokuden was a new character that was based on a guy that I went to school with at the time. I think I knew him since middle school and up through high school, if I'm remembering correctly. Bokuden was this kind of portly sort of. He kind of looked like what the hell is his name? Glacier de Cactank, who was one of the bad guys from Mega Man 03. He was this sort of portly, a combination of Glacier de Cactank fused with Hariyama from Pokemon Gen 3, which Hariyama is one of my favorite Gen 3 Pokemon at that time. And I wanted him to have sort of segmented sprites, kind of like T-Bones and Gronda did and some other characters. And I wanted him to fight with like a capoeira sort of like dancing martial arts style, and use mostly physical attacks against his opponents. He shows up when things get dire for some of the new characters and always seems to be very level-headed. He wasn't going to be very plot influential, but just something quirky and interesting. Admittedly, Bokuden and also the character Majin, who I'm going to talk about a little bit more in depth in the next episode, or a couple episodes from now. Bokuden was, I think, kind of just my thought of... This happens a lot with shows where just sometimes, like, there's a new season. Let's just introduce some new character that was never introduced previously and has never been established in the world, but they're just going to suddenly become really important and just hang out with the main characters a lot and just be featured and given a lot of screen time all of a sudden. You know, for better or worse, that was a thing that I noticed would happen a lot with, like, both anime and American cartoons that I was watching growing up, and that was always kind of, like, strange and off-putting to me, but I think I wanted to try doing that as sort of an experiment in storytelling to see, like, why? Like, what was the deal with that? Why did shows do that so often? So I just sort of threw him in, and the guy that he was based on at the time, I won't mention his name to protect his identity, yeah, I was friends with him up through that point, and just wanted to make a character for him. I think I found him to be a very, like, intriguing, kind of, like, eccentric, like, low-key, kind of chill dude. Yeah, he would have been in there and would have had a fight with Flashblade. And at some point in the midst of this, maybe I was wrong, and maybe there would have been like a small battalion of X-Virusites. I think that there was always maybe like an implication that when the different Dark Eyes of Anubis, the Guild of Anubis character group, you know, that like whenever any individual member of that group was going to go off and perform some kind of specific mission, I think that they would usually bring like a small battalion of X-Virusites with them, and maybe some other characters would appear with them depending on what was going on. But everybody kind of had a specific sort of mission to accomplish each time, right? So one of the other characters that Flashblade would have brought along with him was this character named Fauna, not to be confused with the Hololive series Fauna. Nylok would have had an encounter with this character, and I will speak a little bit more about her also in the oncoming episodes. So, and 75 would have ended with Kirbopher15, haha, that's me, speaking with having a battle with Flashblade. And I'm sure that he would have had, you know, some kind of, horrible experience with, you know, oh my god, you know, why am I having to fight against my master? Like, what is this? Why is he our enemy? Like, why is he doing this? You know, whatever his mission was that involved, trying to track down Webmaster for whatever reason. It would have been clear that he was an enemy, and Curb would have had to fight against him. And maybe Curb would have lost. I would imagine he would have lost in that fight, because they would have had to meet again. So maybe it would have ended on kind of a dire note like that. Next up, episode 076, Giga's Ordeal. So, this involved a character that you also got to see at the end of Season 3. Now, before I go into this one, I'm going to address briefly an elephant in the room for you all. So as I had mentioned a little bit a while ago, with Legendary Frog as an example, and Newgrounds, which I'll go more into that and everything, there were things in Season 4, characters and locations and other things, that were based on people and places and websites and things that were involved with my life during that time in the very early 2000s. I'm going to address this briefly, and I'm going to, be somewhat vague about it. I'm sure some of you probably know a little bit of what I'm talking about. Please just be understanding and respectful with where I'm coming from on this. So at the time, I was involved with a website that TTA was hosted on. It was a comic hub website from back then. It is no longer up. And it hosted a wide variety of different artists that I got to know, and some of which I worked with in various capacities. 4 of the Guild of Anubis members were characters that were based on artists that were part of that website in question. The only one of them that I am going to name is a character that has been just directly shown on the episodes because he was shown at the end of season 3. So, and that character is Agent Oma, who was the other Cyber Protectorate Department secret agent that worked. He was at the same level as Giga, basically, in that whole thing, right? So, the other 3, I'm going to call them Sharpshooter, Crystal User, and Music Girl. I'm going to leave it at that. Please respect why I'm choosing to do that. Please don't pry as to why. You can probably guess. But just, I ask that you be respectful and not, go too further than this. I have my reasons, and I just ask that you be respectful. So, that said, episode 76, Giga's Ordeal, focused on Oma, Agent Oma, as the kind of enemy of that particular episode, right? So, Giga would have lost touch with Oma, strangely, after Oma had come in and bailed him out of a jam in the second last episode of season 3 at the time. And here's a little bit more info about Oma. So, Oma's previous assistance to Giga and Game Crazed at the end of Season 3 was of his own will, but only thanks to lenience by Dark Eyes, because he had been, in fact, captured by that point. So, after later discovering that the missing agent that the government trio was looking for, which by that I mean those 3 characters that were the contest winners at that time, they were looking for a lost agent, quote unquote, and they thought that was Giga. In fact, really who they were looking for, and they didn't even realize it, was actually Agent Oma. So, suspicions arise as a result. Giga investigates further and learns of Oma's involvement with the Guild of Anubis. And so throughout that episode, he's trying to, kind of hunt for clues. And eventually, and this might have even been like a Giga-centric episode, like kind of something told from his perspective, which could have been cool, because by that point it was established that Giga was one of the good guys and, understood and respected, some of our heroes and everything. So I think this might have been an episode that was all kind of mainly centered around him. Maybe it would have featured the other good guys and everything. But, Oma would have shown up once again at Motherboard's maze now that the coast had been clear, and he would have brought Fauna along with him as one of the people to help him out with this. And their mission was to retrieve Kageto, the child Kagemaru. That was being hidden in, that little area down close to where Motherboard's core was, because they wanted to bring it back to Dark Eyes' base on Newgrounds. So it would have ended with probably a battle between Oma and Giga. His powers were based on different, art supplies, such as pens and lead and things like that. And he could also use this thing called the Animove, which was copying another person's ability after he makes contact with, after his character makes physical contact with them, he would copy their ability and be able to use one attack that was based on their element. You saw a little bit of this in Season 3, like I had mentioned before. So, yeah, that was the whole deal with him. I should also mention that, these things that I'm listing that I have in my little battle guide thing, the notes that I had left, these are just very, very basic notes, and I think that in the background there would have certainly been other things happening with the other characters too. I'm sure that we probably would have had the other, like, you know, main characters and everything doing various things, you know, like cutting to them, showing like whatever they were, you know, whatever they were up to, whatever they're experiencing, and if nothing else, probably just falling back on, oh, they're distracted by fighting more of the X virusites or whatever, just, you know, generic, just padding time. It's so ironic because, by the way, looking at, I've been following the newest season of Bleach, the 1,000-Year Blood War arc, and it's funny because this predates that, and I think yeah, I think it does predate before I got into Bleach, if I'm remembering correctly, or maybe the very beginning of me getting into Bleach, if I'm remembering right. Yeah, a lot of what you could expect from those kind of anime situations where it was just like, all right, you know, it's just the characters fighting each other and just, you know, they posture at each other and no actual plot things are really happening. Like, that's really all it was. And it was not all that interesting, to be brutally honest. You know, which I know is kind of disillusioning to say that, but I mean, that was the truth, is that's really all it was. Play some Sonic 06 music, so excuse me. But yeah, that was the plan overall. So let's see. Okay, episode 077, A Rose with Thorns. So this would have involved the character that I'm going to refer to as Music Girl. So there was a new character I mentioned very briefly for a second, one of the new good guy characters named Majin. Majin was based on, and I will actually shout out this person, because I still appreciate them. Majin was based on another guy that I went to school with through middle school and high school, maybe even possibly elementary school, I can't remember. A guy named Justin Murphy, who was the voice of Sojojo in TTA. He voiced him throughout Season 2. And his screen name at the time was Majin Shadow, and then later Project Shadow 99. So yeah, he the thing about both the original characters of Majin and the Music Girl were that they were both meant to be like kind of sprite re-edits of Sonic characters. His was a purple Shadow the Hedgehog, and hers was a purple Amy Rose. So what I did was I kind of converted them to being kind of like Gijinka, like humanoid versions of Sonic characters. So I gave him like the Shadow the Hedgehog haircut, but he was just like a shirtless dude with like Majin Buu like baggy pants. It was not a very good character design. What I wrote for his profile at the time was, Majin was meant to be the trying to be badass but failing miserably type of character. He joins Tome seeking out a friend of his from his school district that mysteriously disappears, but he keeps contact with her. In a way, Majin kind of has his own disconnected story arc and development, and also assists in the final showdown of Dark Eyes HQ. His powers were based on wrestling moves with some dark energy thrown in, so he and Bokuden were both meant to be characters I wanted to experiment a little bit more with like physical attacks, because there were very few characters that I gave those kind of abilities to. It was mostly just like, you know, projectiles and whatever. Yeah, I think that might have been like the idea behind kind of what I was trying to accomplish with him in terms of the animation side. Majin lasted longer as a character that was helping the others out, and because he even like is part of the final battle towards the end when they head to the base and everything. So yeah, maybe an unnecessary character ultimately, but yeah. So he goes out looking for Music Girl, and she leads him into a trap. And it turns out that I don't know what the trap would have meant in whatever way, you know, but Music Girl and Crystal User were basically looking for the very, very, very few remaining virus frags to join together with Kageto, who they had captured by that point thanks to Oma, and to eventually cultivate a certain thing, which we'll get to that. From my notes, it looks like it looks like Game Crasher and Game Crazed would have fought against Music Girl and Crystal User. The two of them would have, had a 2-on-2 kind of battle against them. And that would have been kind of the main fight of that particular episode. A note that I have here, actually, is that, and this is relevant to a question that Tradgore actually asked a little while ago, as well as actually Super Fighter 064. Outside, sorry, I'll get to Tradgore actually had a more specific question, but it was asked, what role did Kalasu Angel and Dust Bunny have? What role were they going to play in Season 4? I have a note in this episode that said, Kalasu Angel would have obtained a virus fragment, and he no longer hears Kagemaru's voice, like he did in Season 2. So, that would have made him suddenly question everything in his weird-ass, insane, thing that he was going through or whatever. And, so that was the thing. And as for Dust Bunny, I will get to that, and the answer of what their actual specific role was a little bit later on, because that'll be coming up in I think a few more episodes. So, next up. Actually, hold on. While I'm at it, too, I didn't even explain. I'll read a little bit about Music Girl's profile. So she goes to the same high school as Majin and is known as somewhat of a popular girl, but one day mysteriously, quote, runs away from home, unquote. Majin keeps in contact with her through Tome, until he later learns that her disappearance is linked to the ones responsible for Tome's latest incidents with the, raids and the viruses and everything, and her ties to the Guild of Anubis. Her attacks, and this is something interesting, her attacks are mostly based on sound waves of different kinds, and she can change the BGM of her Battle Grid's music settings, allowing her to change her character's stats. So, interestingly enough, this idea behind she would change the background music, and then she, one theme would make her faster, one theme would make her stronger, one theme would give her, different types of attacks and things. That was actually an idea that I had been experimenting around with for a while and wanted to use, and what I ultimately ended up using it for was the battle against Kinder Spirit in Tome 2011. Because if you listen very closely during Flame Girl's battle with her in episode 12 of that show, you'll notice that the background music keeps changing, and then Kinder Spirit's special attack keeps changing from, the little thunderclouds to, the hailstorm to the tornado, that kind of thing. So that was an idea that I had for a while, and that would have been kind of cool to play around with a bit, so. And, so... that was the end of that. So, okay. Next up. Episode 078. Enigmatic Girl. So, this would have been a major Nihilok episode. Okay, so now allow me to talk a little bit about this character, Fauna. This was a fan-created character, but it was not similar to the, what's it called? Oh, this is, funnily enough, it's the Angel versus Devil theme I use. This is the Ex-Cerberus battle theme from Sonic 06. That's funny. Hearing a lot of familiar stuff if you just recently watched TTA. A lot of the music that I stole, hence why the videos are unmonetized. Anyway, so as opposed to fan inclusions like just the random background characters and the different contests that I did, Fauna was a character that was created from a fan fiction that someone that I knew at the time on a different forum had created because they were a huge fan of Nihilok. They were actually the first, it's so funny because Nihilok is so beloved, he's the big favorite character now, but this person was Nai's biggest fan at the time. And so they wrote a little story that I really liked. It was very, very cute. And so Fauna was another, much like Kaza was, Fauna was a virus, another virus being created from the X virus and given form, basically. I think that the implication was that she was going to have this sort of Jekyll and Hyde, kind of split personality thing, where she had a dark side and a good side. and the dark side had this like kind of beast form to it, where she could switch to being this sort of like wolfish, foxish sort of canine kind of thing, and then she had more of like an anthro sort of like human shape type design to her, which there's art of her out there for that. So, excuse me. Created by the power of the X virus and given the form of a user, Fauna is one of the Guild of Anubis' secret weapons with the ability to manipulate virtual space. Fauna was built similarly to the debug dragon in how she has two different personalities, there it is, represented by the red and blue coloring, with red being her more compassionate human-like side and blue being her cruel killing machine side. Fauna escapes, this is what it was. She would have been alongside the X-Virusites and would have left them and not returned back home after one of the raids, right? She escapes a raid on Tome by the Guild amidst the chaos, and eventually meets Nilok a few days after the assault had passed. The two form a quick friendship over nightly visits and conversations, but her association with the enemy is quickly found out. Anubis' forces continue to try and retrieve her, but to no avail. She has the ability to take control of junk data within the virtual landscape, and telekinetically control it as she wishes. With this power, she built the gigantic base of operations for the Guild of Anubis. So, this was inspired by some of that fan fiction story, and it's been forever since I've, seen this. And again, I don't even think you probably can't find this anymore, so don't even bother looking. But it was, I believe it was like, he meets this like, AI computer, creature, and they kind of like, have this forbidden romance type of, there's like somewhat of an attraction to it. Maybe they don't necessarily fall in love, but they have a bit of an attraction to each other and these weird, feelings and everything. And so that would have been reflected and built up a little bit throughout the first batch of episodes. And then in episode 078, Nilok would have met up with her, and then the Crystal User, member of the Guild of Anubis, would have gone looking for her. So then Sai would have had a fight with the Crystal User character in that episode. Not much more to say about him, about the Crystal Using character. Other than he would have been one of the few that enjoyed, even though he was captured and, made into a slave or whatever, he would have, I guess, just sort of accepted his fate and enjoyed just torturing people because he was kind of an insane person as well, and maybe a special different type of insane from what Dark Eyes was. And he often would clash with Nilok while attempting to retrieve one of Dark Eyes' most important weapons, and eventually fights with them in the final battle at Dark Eyes HQ. And his powers were based on being able to control different types of energy in the form of these crystals and things like that. That was kind of his power gimmick and everything. And it is funny, Masquerade, you point out the fact that, and I don't think that necessarily this was meant, that this might have just been a coincidence, but the fact that, Nilok has this very deep friendship connection with Game Crazed / Softy in the 2011 series. That was kind of a fun sort of like, I think that was kind of a happy accident that happened with that sort of thing in the later stories and everything. So that would have been that episode. Next, episode 079, Hot Day for Demon King, and hot was spelled HAWT. And it was the 2000s. What could I say? Nonetheless, so. This would have introduced a character that at the time was named Erdy. I think I played around with calling her Crafty. And this would have marked finally the proper return of Demon King. Since like season 1, he had not really been prominent in the show at all for all that time. And he would have introduced Nilok to her. And Demon King and Nilok would have finally had their big rematch, and it would have actually been shown on screen, because I have a note for that would have been one of the battles. And let me read, what did I have planned for Erdy? She was another TvTome user, I believe, that I just hadn't made a character out of up until that point. She was very cute. She was like a purple kind of witch girl. She kind of looked like a cross between like Dark Magician Girl and what's her name? Blair from Soul Eater. But this was before Soul Eater. That was just a coincidence. She was to be introduced as Demon King's girlfriend and later reluctantly betrays them after revealing her ties to Dark Eyes and his guild. She is inexperienced at the game and isn't very bright. Wow, very progressive of me, great. But charms several users with her character design. Not very plot influential. Her powers would mostly magical-based attacks akin to the Dark Magicians of Yu-Gi-Oh! Because I was a big fan of, like magical hats and magic cylinders and, that kind of stuff. Magic, spellbinding circle, that kind of stuff from Yu-Gi-Oh! I was always a big fan of those kind of abilities and spell cards and things. So that would have been the case for her. Excuse me. And then all I have is a note of Erdy has to leave. That's all I had listed there as any kind of, real information. So, okay. So before we get to the next episode, I want to speak about a few things that I think probably were happening, again, like I mentioned, kind of in the background of these episodes. And I think that maybe the reason that I didn't have these listed as specific plot points in the battle guide was because I was going to just sort of pace them out and figure them out as I wrote the episodes. I remember that Alpha in particular would have been feeling like this weird sort of like hatred for the game where he's like, he feels obligated to stick around and, see what was going on. And especially after the Dark Eyes, guild shows up, he's like, okay, I should continue to do my best to, stop these guys. But he grows to kind of resent the game as a result of it because of just all the pain that it's causing not only him, but his friends and all these other innocent people. And he gets very, very dark and very, brooding as a result of that. Like, it was justified for a specific reason, basically, because of all of what was happening, you know what I mean? And even the fact that, it was weighing on him, it was affecting his relationship with Flame Girl as well. Because, of course, they still had not straight up got together with each other by that point. But, there were feelings between them, and Flamey was feeling like he was becoming very, very distant with her. But he was just kind of dealing with it as best as he could. And maybe the others would have been trying to comfort her, here and there. Maybe Flamey could have been, bonding a little bit more with Rory or something throughout that time. Who knows? Just different things like that. So everybody was all kind of dealing with this crazy shit in their own different kind of way. So, episode 80, all that said. Episode 0880, the 7th Net King. So here we are. Okay, over on Newgrounds, washing ashore to the Dark Eyes base would have been this weird sort of strange dismantled black virus thing. Washes ashore the Dark Eyes Island HQ and is found by Kaza. The half-dead entity copies the form of one of the X-Virusites and joins the Guild of Anubis on their next raid upon Tome's servers. I'll get more into that in a second. So, then, Ryoko, who is the second in command to the Dark Eyes Guild, leads the virus horde again. So Ryoko, who was the character that you saw in the second to last episode of TTA, of the season 3 stuff. So, Ryoko was that kind of base EXE looking silhouette that went to that little section in the motherboard maze and was retrieving the data of Dark Eyes of Anubis' character model from that pit, basically. She was based on the owner of a Mega Man Battle Network / Mega Man NT Warrior / Rockman EXE fan site. She would have led several of Dark Eyes' operations throughout the first part of the season, including a raid that eventually ends up with a certain thing happening that I won't spoil yet. Much like the Crystal user guy I mentioned, she enjoys her job. I agree. So, am I lagging a little bit? Hold on. I'll let it simmer for a sec. Can you guys still see me? Are we all good? Uh-oh. Oh, no. Oh, that's weird. Okay, hold on. I'll give it a second. It's saying on my end that it's fine. I'm not getting any weirdness on my end. Give it a sec. Oh, we're back? We're good? Am I coming in okay? Let me know. Okay, cool. So, yes. So she would have led the next raid on Tome with oh yes, okay, yes. This is a big episode actually for this arc here. She leads a huge horde of X-virus sites. During that time, this little mass of virus data that copied one of the X-virus sites appears, and in the process he attacks Flame Girl. Neo Mutant shows up on the scene again and tries to intervene, but this virus being copies his form and becomes a double of his character model, and he calls himself Zeo Mutant. Very original. He's literally just like a black and red evil copy of Neo Mutant. Not a very original, type of thing, basically. So, yeah, that was what that was all about. Excuse me. So, in the midst of that, the Net Kings began working on a new project for something very important. By this time, they had probably found out, through the circumstances of the previous episodes, what was going on and how Dark Eyes was involved, and maybe even a little bit of what his plan was. And, sorry, getting distracted by something. And so they start working on a new project for something that is a huge precaution to try and protect Tome as much as possible. And this thing that they start working out, this thing that the Net Kings start working on is called the Fallout Shelter. That's the title that they give it. This is named after a forum that I used to be on, where when I released the TTA episodes back in the day, often they would be promoted, and a lot of the show's earliest fans, including all the background characters that I got a lot of the sprites from, they were on the Fallout Shelter forum. This forum was also kind of connected to the comic site that I was part of at the time, that some of the Guild of Anubis characters that I'm, giving code names to were based on, so that was kind of the connection with that specifically. And it was also where I met, I think, pretty much all of the sprite artists that I worked with that did all the sprite work for the different characters in TTA throughout that time. So, yeah, Akuma the Hedgehog and some of the other, like one-off sort of characters like that appeared throughout the show, they all came from that forum, basically. So the Fallout Shelter was named after that, and it was meant to be, as you can see, that the Net Kings are able to make these kind of like light barriers that protect various things. The Fallout Shelter was meant to be the antivirus program as a giant dome that would protect the virtual world from harm. This giant barrier that would go around the Tome Island, basically. So that was kind of the idea behind that. However, things were not going well because Ryoko would have led this raid that ends up with a big thing happening. The entire sanctuary region is destroyed. It is completely disintegrated off of Tome. And as a result of that, the ranks of Sanctuary, who would have been, trying to fight back against the raid at that time, they all end up getting hospitalized, unfortunately. So, yeah, that was a big turning point that would have happened by that particular episode, and yeah, and of good fitting sad music. Yeah, so that was meant to be like a big sort of like loss for all of our heroes, like collectively, as the enemies kind of succeeding and chipping away at a huge chunk of Tome itself. And okay. The end of this episode of episode 80 would have resulted in Flamey getting kidnapped again. Because of course. Because of course. That's what I would have done. Because I couldn't think of any other better things than that. And I hate myself for it. And goddamn. But, yeah. So Flamey would have been removed from the action for a pretty sizable chunk of episodes. Very, very sad to say. But, yeah. And you know what? I'm trying to even remember, if it was that... What was it? I can't remember if it was actually, like, she gets kidnapped in real life. Like how the other people from the Dark Eyes Guild had been captured. Or if her user just gets seized. I don't know. I don't remember the exact specifics of how this worked. I don't know for sure, because it's been a long time. There are other specifics about things that happened with Flamey later in the arc that I do remember. But she was kidnapped by the Guild of Anubis, and she was put in danger by the virus, much like what happened at the end of the first season, but this was a lot worse. So there was that. Oh, I scrolled down way too far. Hold on. So, yeah, she would have been taken to the Dark Eyes of Anubis base. The player character, the actual model, would have been taken there, and she would have been put in this holding cell. Her character would have been put in this sort of holding cell thing that happens deep in the main sort of like the deepest part of the base of Dark Eyes' whole kind of thing, where the area where Syrah, the original like core part of the X virus, was being held as well. So Flamey just would have been stuffed down there with the X virus and kind of like talking to Syrah, which I'll get into that a little bit more as time goes on. So, all right. So next up, we have a one of those two-part kind of episodes. Episodes 081 and 082, 81 and 82, were Hunting Zetto, Part 1 and Part 2. Every season generally had like a Part 1, Part 2 kind of like thing to it at some point. So, carried on that tradition a little bit. So, from what I can see in this... Alpha was mailed a danger helmet. Somehow one just arrives at his doorstep, and he tests it with Kirbopher at that point. Why he would have done such a thing? He would have done that with Kirbopher because he knew that he would have been safe, because Kirb wouldn't have gone overboard. But otherwise, I have no idea, other than knowing that he would have used it in the final battle against Dark Eyes, just because it was cool and edgy and had higher stakes or some bullshit. Excuse me. So, yeah, very silly, very not a smart thing to be doing. But and Dark Eyes clearly was the one who mailed that to him. The mission for this one, by the bad guys, would have been Ernie and the sharpshooter character looking for Zetto. And I suppose that by that point, Zetto would have been back in the game for sure. And yeah, I think that yes, that's right. Okay. So then, Ruri fights against Ernie and the sharpshooter. Let me talk about the sharpshooter a little tiny bit. They were meant to be the silent killer of the guild, and is sent on a mission to gain information on Zetto and how he might be useful to Dark Eyes' plans. Through this mission, they become rivals with Ruri through their similar gameplay style, and faces her in the final battle at Dark Eyes' stronghold. And would have had a lot of like crazy sniping capabilities and things like that. So, Yes. Okay. I have a note in this episode about how Alpha speaks with Dust Bunny. Okay. So silly. Real quick, let me just see if I had a note about this other particular thing that was going on. Oh, by the way, I'm sorry. There was something I totally forgot. And maybe this goes to show how inconsequential this was. But there was a character that we would have also introduced at the beginning of the season. I completely skipped over this. Named Needle. Needle was meant to be Onidug's replacement as the third moderator. He would have taken over as the new moderator for Purple Cave. He was a cool guy. His attacks were all themed around spikes and needles. Yeah, he was just meant to be kind of a nice, chill dude, basically. So that was really all there was to him. I don't think I had much of a plan for him as a character other than just that, really. But, you know, he was in there. Maybe he would have had a fight or two at some point alongside Ichinar and maybe Paper Ace Chase, you know, before Chase was, you know, booted off. And he was based on a guy that did a podcast called Speak Geek Speak. I just was a fan of his, and I thought he was cool. That was really all there was. Not too much further beyond that. So, yeah. Okay. So, I think that I don't think I have another like particular note about this anywhere else. So I'll mention this here. This goes back to the what was Dust Bunny and Kalasu Angel's role going to be for this season. Well, they would have tried to get together some more hackers and revive the debug org. That's what I remember what the intention was. But as for what their actual goal or motivation was, I don't remember. I really, really do not remember what it was. I know that Dust Bunny and Kalasu Angel would have tried to wrangle up any of the other characters that were still around that could have been back in with them, and there were not very many. I think probably the Slime siblings, probably Splat and Doubling would have been in there. God, maybe Skate, maybe God, not Demon King, because he would have been completely. Although I don't know, maybe if they were meant to be like a good guy version of them, I don't know. I don't remember. I really, really, genuinely don't remember what their whole score was. I do remember one other thing, and I'm so glad I never went this route because this would have been so silly. And if Mac or Rocky himself ever hear about this, I wonder what they would think. So I wanted to bring Raccoon back, but because he had been banned. Yeah, Torben, like, obviously Torben would not have been part of that, but Raccoon would have been banned, so I had the idea of giving him another account, and kind of like how, what's it called, Splat created Cosmic Debris. I would have had Raccoon create a new account, Hyena. That would have been his new form, basically, which is such a sin against Raccoon in general, and it probably would have just literally been like a palette swap of just like how Cosmic Debris was just purple Splat. I didn't even need to really give her a different screen name. It was silly, yeah, it would have just been like a recolor of Raccoon sprite. It wouldn't have been like, you know, like a totally different looking design or something like that. It was silly. It was very silly. I'm glad I never ended up doing that because that would have been such an insult to the character overall. So yeah, I sadly can't remember exactly what the purpose was for you know, maybe I would have called it like the Neo debug org or something like that. But I do remember one other thing. I do remember that if you guys recall in season 3, there was this weird kind of like semi-flirty encounter between Dust Bunny and Alpha. They're like in the smoke, and she's like capturing one of the shadow users, and he's like kind of like staring her down and she's intimidated and stuff. And there's even a little bit where like she kind of opens up to Kalasu Angel a little bit and he just like doesn't care. Okay, let me preface. I was a teenager. Please let me preface with that. Dust Bunny was just my like, I'm a teenager and I'm horny and I want to make a sexy girl character. I'm not proud of this. It was just a learning experience. And I think I wanted to make her kind of depraved. And in the sense of like, oh, she's all lonely and maybe she's got some like degenerate kind of tendencies. Ooh, sexy, haha, Lamau. It's utter cringe. I think that after learning about Alpha has this danger helmet thing where it, you are affected by what happens in the game and maybe it even affects you. She was trying to come on to him or something like that. Like there was some kind of weird, like, you know, I'm not even going to say romantic because it was not like that at all. There was no, because the point was that it was to show that Alpha's like, even though there was, you know, some distance and stuff that was happening between the two of them, there was, Alpha was still very, very much dedicated to Flame Girl and wanted to protect her. And so, like, that was just a test of, like, I'm not abandoning her, you know, for some random person or whatever that has otherwise previously been my enemy. You know what I mean? So that was, it would have been completely unnecessary. And considering the fact that I don't even remember what the Neo debug org's purpose was going to be. It was just nonsense. It really, really was just a bunch of nonsense by that point. You know what I mean? So that's just silly, you know. Nonetheless, for the part 2 of the hunting Zetto kind of thing, Zetto would have finally returned, and he would have finally, as implied by the opening, as you guys have noticed, he would have finally had a face-off with Kaza, who would have been leading that next attack that was going on. And I'm sure probably sliced Zetto up and gotten some of his essence and everything. So that was where Zetto's metal arm would have been completely destroyed. And after this episode, Zetto would have been given a new character model, basically. So, and then here it is. I have one note about Dust Bunny goes back to speak with the Shattered Debug Org. And I guess they just, you know, whatever my intention that sadly I can't remember anymore, whatever intention they had, I guess would have been like collapsed by then. But I think that those characters would have still been around for one last thing, which I'll be getting to shortly. So, next up, episode 83, Guild of Anubis. Alpha and the others speak to Webmaster about a plan that they have. Excuse me. So, in wanting to try to do something directly about stopping the Guild of Anubis. Or rather, sorry, no, I apologize. They don't have a plan. They start trying to figure out formulating a plan. Webmaster talks about how the Net Kings want to shut down Tome to the rest of the users until they can figure something out. This, of course, is something, actually, this element that I'm about to talk about was integrated into the second season of the 2011 series, where the Net Kings decide to give everybody 24 hours to log out of the game before they start to try and do something about stopping Kadget and the virus and everything. So this came, that concept came from this idea that I'm talking about, where they're like, okay, if we want to actually do something about stopping the Guild of Anubis, we need to slowly but surely let all of the users from Tome log out and then not come back in after a while. We need to clear everybody out of the game, even if it might kill our sales. We have to let everybody out so that there will be no danger of anybody getting hurt, hopefully. That was the whole idea. Giga appears and is able to give some more information, and he lets them know about I think that this is where he reveals, maybe somehow he knows about what's going on with how the members have been kidnapped and etc. and what Dark Eyes might be doing to them, something like that. It might be because somehow Oma is feeding him information, like as a double agent or something like that. It could be. That could be the case, I think. I don't know for sure. But, yeah, and then Alpha mentions in this episode, I have a note about this. Alpha and the others want to continue in order to save the Anubis Guild members. Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. No, okay. The plan they were talking about where they want to let all the users log out and then try to, go attack the base and everything, that's what they come up with as a compromise. The Net Kings just, I think, straight up want to shut the entire game down completely and just to avoid this whole issue. But between Flamey being kidnapped and obviously these other characters being, kidnapped, and Alpha being like, I want to save all of them too because they might be in danger. That seems to be the case, is they understand by that point that, oh, okay, there's, something really, really sinister going on and we need to rescue these people. So that's that. All right, and then episode 84, The Fallout Shelter. The virus horde attacks for a third time. And this time, the Fallout Shelter activates around Tome. However, unfortunately, or rather, no. It's not unfortunately. Fortunately, because this is, I remember now, this is part of the plan. Game Crazed is left behind and captured by Kaza. That was another one of the missions they were trying to accomplish. I remember now. That's what it was. So, and I believe that was intentional. Game Crazed lets himself become bait because he knew that since he has that trace part of the debug that's in him, that they would want to bring him, back to the base and everything and try to extract it because it's one of Dark Eyes' viruses, of course. So GC is sacrifices himself, not sacrifices himself, but makes himself into bait, and because that he did that, Webmaster is able to trace his account to Newgrounds. That's where they find out. Sorry, okay, I'm remembering the order of events now. Forgive me for being a little out of order with this. That is how they find out about the exact location of the base. Is, oh my gosh, Dark Eyes Guild must be on Newgrounds, where the original beta area. That's got to be where the base is. Okay, that makes sense. So then, GC is taken back to the, Dark Eyes' base, and Dark Eyes of Anubis extracts the remaining debug out of GC's character model. And I don't remember for sure. But I think that when he does that, I think that GC returns to his original state, his original shadow self, and he doesn't look like the redemption form anymore. I think that might have been what the plan was. But it's also equally possible it might have been left over, the data of that form, his user remembers the form of it and he just keeps it. But I don't recall 100% for certain or not. I might have gone that route because I wanted to differentiate the designs of him and Game Crasher. But I don't recall for sure. So, yeah. As a result, the debug is completed and fused back into Faxel. The last little bit of it, and Faxel now contains the entirety of the debug Purple Flame virus within him. And he has the ability to create these two little miniature debug dragons that are basically his familiars. So they sort of float around. Actually, funny story. At the end of 2011, when Ruby Rules absorbs the debug virus and he turns into that kind of pinkish purple copy of Alpha, during that point, he turns his arm into a debug dragon. That is a leftover idea from the full-powered, full debug version of Faxel, basically. So that was the whole kind of idea behind that. At the same time, another one of the secret weapons that our that our bad guys have been cooking up is ready for consumption, or not consumption, ready for usage, ready for launch. So I have a note in this episode here as well that Flamey and Dark Eyes of Anubis test the danger helmet. I don't want to imagine what kind of horrible implications that could mean, but I know that had to do with the fact that Dark Eyes very grossly just keeps Flamey, like, by his side and in this little, like, place where Zira, the virus girl, the core of the X virus is, and speaks with her. So Flamey gets kind of a front row seat to how horrible Dark Eyes how horrible of a person Dark Eyes really is, because he just kind of confides in her, like, almost like teasingly, like, about like what he plans to do with this plan and everything. It's really horrible, quite frankly. So there's that. But and there's also a note for this episode that Flamey and GC. Oh, that's right. Okay, Flamey and GC can't access their computers. I think that maybe this might have been something with either, what was it? It might have been an implication that Flamey and GC were, like, their subconsciousnesses, their consciousnesses might have been, like, trapped in the game because of whatever they were doing with the crazy virus shit. And their bodies were just, like, left limped. It might have been something like that. Again, I don't remember those specifics, but I have a note in this episode for episode 84 that says Flamey and GC can't access their computers. So, something like that. I'm not totally sure. But next up, this is the last episode of the Virus Waves arc, is episode 85. It's called Dark Ambitions. So, okay, this is, so at this point, I remember this was an episode I was really looking forward to what I wanted to do with. So, Giga would have crafted a giant, virtual, like, ship, like a vessel for the group that would be infiltrating Newgrounds, to travel on across the virtual sea and go there to then eventually attack the base. Excuse me. So, in the meantime, while Giga was constructing this ship, the users, all of the remaining users in the game, this is the last day that they would have had to play. And the implication is that all of our heroes, every one of the friendly characters that our heroes knew, Saturn Diva, White Queen, Sniper Wave, Rob Star, Thunder, Hamstar, T-Bones, Grounder, Suzuku, Shogun, Eriko. Eriko probably wouldn't have been playing the game anymore. I don't think he would have been in there. But probably the debug hackers. Everybody that was left, all those characters would have duked it out. And if you were logged out, you would stay logged out. You would not be able to come back into the game. There would be one more virus horde attack. The remaining users would defend themselves against the viruses, and whoever was remaining would get to go on that ship and travel to Newgrounds for the big final attack. So that was one I was looking forward to, because that episode 85 would have probably been the last, like, appearance of a lot of major characters in the show that had been, previously given a lot of screen time and things in earlier parts of the story and everything. So yeah. So, and it would have ended with, if I'm remembering correctly, I believe that the final team of who would have all gotten to travel to and fight against the final bad guys would have been Alpha, Kirbopher, Zetto, Ruri, Nylok, Gamecrasher, Majin, and Giga. I believe it was those 8. if I am remembering correctly, I believe it was those 8. So, yeah. So episode 85, Dark Ambitions. If you can imagine like another sort of like side character that ever appeared in the show at any point that was, you know, helpful or even remotely redeemable or still able to play the game, they probably would have been in that episode as a last sort of hurrah to end out that arc. And the next arc, the Newgrounds arc, would have been, in fact, actually, you know what? I think I'm even remembering. I think that I intended the ship that they were going to travel on to be named like the Vaccine Arc or the Vaccine like vessel, like something like it was meant to be like it kind of in accordance with like how the vaccine weapons were Vaccine Cannon and Vaccine Gatler and Vaccine Magnum were the 3 weapons. I wanted to, I think I intended for it to be something kind of like that. So if memory serves. So yeah, that was that. And yes, so we are, let's see, we're about 10, 11 episodes in. So before we get to the next arc, I'm going to take a brief break and go get some tea real quick. So I'm going to play a little bit more music for you while I go use the bathroom, make some tea, and then we will return in just a moment. I know that there's still a few other questions that I have not gotten to yet that I will address before this is over. So, actually, by the way, I realized Tradgore, who asked, outside of Dust Bunny and Cullis, did any other minor characters return in Season 4? All of the other ones you can think of would have been in Episode 85. Just to kind of quick answer that question real quick. So, yeah. So I'll get to more of the questions in a little bit. So give me just a moment. Let me pull open. I want to use that Spark and Shadow Spark Mandrill remix because that was a really good one. Okay. I will return very shortly, folks. Give me about like 5 minutes or so, and I'll be right back with you. Perfect timing. Boop. I'm back and I got a snack. Whew. Oh man. I've got some auditions that I got to do either today or tomorrow. Play some more Mega Man Zero music. Ooh. Just a few minutes to relax myself. How's all y'all's weekend been going so far? Oh, the Hololive concert was postponed? That's a shame. Playing Minecraft while listening, cool. Get a cup of tea, but it's after 12. Oh, what time is it? Are you in Europe? Oh man, if you are, you're staying up super late for this. I appreciate it. Played wiffle ball and video games with your cousins. Very cool. Oh, Netherlands. Cool. Nice. Been drawing. Cool. Pardon my goldfish in my mouth while I talk. This week was crazy. I was, I don't remember if I mentioned or not. I've had my first animation freelance job in quite a while, which has been pretty fun. I'm excited to talk about when that comes out later on. Does the snack smile back? The snack that smiles back until you bite its head off and it dies. Goldfish. Pollo! Pollo! Ace Spray. Never heard of that. I've not used Blender for 2D drawing. I've actually been postponing. Germ and I haven't gotten the chance to do the next part of the tutorial for the 3D stuff because I need to animate the 7 stars that I did for part of the music video thing, which by the way has been coming along very well. So that's been cool to work on. I just got up to the "My name is Croco, gimme wallet, wallet. In the end of the game, items, something rare." I'm up to that part, animating that a little bit there. So another remix of that same theme. I've been trying to force myself to eat more because I've I've been skinnier lately, I've noticed. But it's rotten! What? Oh, but, oh. Whoa, 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 hey, oh, whoa, hobo, hello? Oh, crap. Am I fucking... Oh, god damn it. Hold on a minute. Thank God I had Lavendera behind me. Weird. Okay, we're good. You're good. Anyway. Jesus. Sorry about that. I don't know what the hell happened. My what's it called? My drive that had all my TTA stuff on it got disconnected somehow. It's my bad. Let's try that again. Anyway. Whoop. I was saying, yeah, I've been trying to force myself to eat more because I've been getting skinnier again, and I'm not happy with my body. I might even try to do some no, I don't want to trade my body. But I don't know. I'm just trying to take better care of myself, you know what I mean? I have original goldfish, and I have apple cinnamon rice crisps. Delicious. Rachel A. Rembecki asked on Patreon, did I use a website or program to make the sprites, or was it all hand by hand? No, I'm not sharing my snacks with you, unless maybe you continue to draw really good fed art, Baka. Then maybe I'll give you a single apple cinnamon crisp, maybe. Back in the day, what we did was I used a program called Fireworks. I didn't have Photoshop yet. Fireworks was a good program for editing and exporting individual sprites. And so it was a combination of that and probably a little bit of maybe even MS Paint, to be honest. I don't know. Because I can't recall when I got Photoshop. I want to say it wasn't until like 2006 or something. And I was doing the episodes like before that. I do remember, but yeah, what we would do was we would take the individual sprite sheets of like characters, like say for example, Alpha, Nilok, Zetto, Robstar, all those characters were all edited off of Mega Man Zero. Speaking of music, and so we would take those sprites and edit them, like draw over them to make them look like the characters, but we'd use the animation frames of like them running and attacking and whatever as a base to work off of. So a little more snack and I'll be good to go again.
Who was Kirbopher15 based off of? Oh, I don't know. Some dickwad. Oh, you mean the sprite? Oh, I don't know. Some really obscure Nintendo character. Ha ha ha. Oh, yeah. Working player. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. White Queen and Grounder had the same face. Splat and Saturn Diva had the same construct. You know, the roll, rip off, and everything. You know, they're not very creative back then. His curved sword just kind of glued to his back. I have a holster. I refuse to explain how it works. It's none of your business. It's none of your business. And I'll thank you. I'll thank you not to pry about my personal information. Thank you. This is my last handful of rice cakes. Oh. All right. Okay, so food has been devoured, tea has been sipped. Let's get back to it. So, we enter the Newgrounds arc. This was basically Season 4's equivalent of the infiltration mission from Season 2, where the majority of it is just our heroes go through the enemy base and they have a bunch of battles. It's you know, the stereotypical One Piece, you know, every Straw Hat gets a fucking rival character to fight against. You know the drill. So, believe it or not, my my notes for the remaining episodes are very, very, very minimal. So, but I'll go through what I got. So, for example, the Newgrounds arc would have opened up with our heroes on the SS Vaccine, or Vaccine Vessel, whatever the fuck I called the ship. And, excuse me, oh my god. Those are all the goldfish coming up to say hello. Jesus. The team, the crack team of remaining heroes would have headed for the base, but they get there, and there is a tremendous, there's a tremendous barrier that is protecting the entrance to the big base, the big fortress with the pyramid in the center. So, however, there was one ally that our heroes had managed to make and convert throughout this whole time, and that is Fauna. Fauna, probably due to her connection and friendship with Nihilok, defects from the Dark Eyes Guild. I think I wanted to have that Jekyll Hyde thing played up a little bit, where she's like having an inner kind of feud with her other, like, you know, beast side that you know, like is the one that is obeying Dark Eyes, you know, original programming of just kill, destroy, you know, etc. But I had mentioned from her profile that I was reading before, she has the ability to take control of junk data within the virtual landscape and telekinetically control it as she wishes. With this power, she built the gigantic base of operations for the Guild of Anubis. Her role, by the halfway point of the season, was helping the main characters find Dark Eyes HQ on an island disconnected from Tome. Using the full amount of her powers, she cracks and shatters the barrier surrounding the stronghold, sacrificing herself to allow her newfound friends to pass through and stop Dark Eyes, allowing the final battle to begin. So, Fauna, the opening of this new arc would have been Fauna sacrificing herself to break open the barrier and allow our heroes to infiltrate the enemy base. In fact, you know what? Looking at this, it's even possible that might have actually been the finale of as much as I want to listen to this, I don't want to get copyright struck. Hold on, let me skip over some of these. This one's fine. Accordion. Sorry. Yeah, I think actually it might have even been the end of that first arc of the virus wave arc, slash the opening of this arc. It was one of the two. But it was, you know, this big sort of climactic, you know, middle point. And of course, I imagine, much like if those of you who have seen that one really sad moment from Sonic X where, like, Tails has to kill, what's-her-face, Cosmo, and it's, like, really sad. It gets, like, super real and dramatic. Probably something akin to that. I don't think it was influenced by that necessarily, but I think that was, like, maybe it might have been. Maybe those episodes aired, but it could have. I don't remember, unfortunately, but, yeah. So, yeah, bye-bye Fauna. That was how I wrote her out of the show, was her sacrificing herself valiantly to help her heroes. So, starting off with episode 86, Welcome to Newgrounds. Our heroes infiltrate the base, and they arrive at this sort of semi-labyrinthian fortress sort of area. And this was I can't play that song. This was kind of like with the infiltration mission stuff with what's it called? The debug headquarters in season 2. I think that what I intended was to leave a lot of this stuff sort of open so that the characters would split up and try to be solving these puzzles and getting through little platforming sections. Like, I always wanted to give because if you noticed in the infiltration mission arc of season 2, what I was kind of doing was every episode of that was about one of the good guy team members fighting against whatever their sort of rival equivalent, like, you know, Kirb fights Raccoon, Flamey fights Torben, Nihilok fights Simdragon, Game Crazed fights Splat, etc. It was meant to be like that, but while those fights were happening, all the other characters were off doing something else. So, and some of these might have even been, like, sort of crossing over with each other a little bit, like kind of bleeding into one another in terms of what was happening in each episode. That might have been what was going on. But in each individual episode, one of the team members would have had somebody to fight against. And sometimes it wasn't always necessarily like, all right, it's this person versus the rival of whoever it was, but usually it was that. Oh, and by the way, I'm reminded of one thing, for better or worse, but of course this was the, you know, in the end, the best version of this character in terms of a moral compass because he redeemed himself. I forgot to mention previously, Neo Mutant was also one of the members of the crack team to go with them. He did get to come with them. So, nonetheless, so welcome to Newgrounds, episode 86. The main fight of that episode in particular was, weirdly enough, Game Crasher versus Erty. Demon King didn't go with them, sad to say, sorry. And I'm trying to even remember if, yeah, I don't think Game Crasher actually, even, like, fights Erty at any point throughout the whole thing. So this one actually is the one that makes the least amount of sense, to be honest. But I think just because I definitely wanted Crasher to be there for the final battle, and Erty was just like the one that was left over, unfortunately, because I think that everybody else had like an appropriate rival except for the two of them. So I just kind of, you know, was like, yeah, sure, that works. They're both purple, haha, Lamau. So, you know, not a lot of thought put into that one, unfortunately. Episode 87, The Rescue, where I think a lot of the emphasis in this one would have been put on the fact that our heroes are saying, hey, we want to save all of you from what is happening right now, because we know that the majority of you don't actually want to be, you know, enslaved by this person, and you're just doing it because, you know, you have to obey them or whatever. So the focused battle of episode 87, The Rescue, would have been Majin versus the Music Girl. So they would have had, did they fight each other in the previous one? Let me try and go back and see. Oh no, they don't actually fight, I think. In fact, that might have even been possibly the first actual, like, full-on battle that the Music Girl gets to have. Although I'm sure she would have had fights like earlier in the, you know, the series or something. I don't know. But that would have been them finally having their last sort of thing, and you know, him swearing that he's going to save her and everything. Maybe even some romantic dedication that inspires Alpha a little bit if he maybe happens to be nearby to witness it or something. You know, I'm trying to put myself in the mindset of what I would have done, you know, 18 years ago when I was doing this, and like what ideas I would have played around with and whatever. So there's that. Episode 88, Second Chances. The battle of focus on that one was Ruri versus the sniper character. Offhanded thought for that is maybe Zetto and Ruri would have been together, and Zetto would have, you know, maybe either one of two things: helped her out, and that's how they would have overcome the sharpshooter, because it's like, yeah, we have teamwork. Or Zetto would have been like, nah, she can handle this on her own. I don't need to help her. You know, even though we're always there for each other, we also know that we're strong enough to, you know, fight individually because we are incredibly powerful as individuals, etc. You know. Perhaps a little romantic moment for them in that episode, if I had to guess. Again, just theorizing. So some of this is I'm thinking about these things offhandedly. You know what I mean? So. After that, episode 89, Honor and Dishonor. The battle of focus in this one would have been Nylok versus the Crystal User. Since the Crystal User was kind of like this antagonistic force against Fauna when she was still with them and trying to constantly, you know, retrieve them and blah, blah, blah. I think that would have been like Nylok at his angriest, like in this, especially after she had just, you know, sacrificed herself. I could see him throughout the majority of this arc being very, very, like, you know, pissed off and like wanting to avenge her and taking that anger out on the Crystal guy, you know, to you know, since he's so evil, he probably would have been reveling and like, she, you know, offed herself, you know, what a loser, you know, type of, you know, something like that, if I had to imagine. Excuse me. So that would have been taken care of. Episode 90, Agents. As you can probably guess by the title, the battle of focus in this one was Giga versus Oma. So, and if I could read a note that I had about Oma here. Giga investigates further and learns of Oma's involvement with the Guild of Anubis. Oma brings the imprisoned Kagato back to Dark Eye's HQ, but later betrays him and assists Giga during the final battle before being knocked unconscious, revealing the real-life location of Dark Eyes. So Oma's last, basically last act of the whole thing was I'm assuming he let himself... I'm assuming, like, as if I didn't come up with this shit. Like, I'm theorizing about my own thing I came up with. He probably let himself be captured, ultimately for the purpose of trying to, give the information necessary to Giga as he could give it, basically. So, and that's what he's able to do. So then, Giga would have logged out at that point to go off and actually, like, get to physically where Dark Eyes' like real life headquarters is. Maybe even would have just flown on a fucking like private jet or some nonsense, something like that. Just like blasted off immediately while our heroes were handling the situation and everything, and that would have created some pressure for Dark Eyes, where he's like, okay, now literally they're coming here, and that's really, really, really bad for me. And I gotta, batten down the hatches, and I gotta get my fucking plan underway, or maybe it's too late, and I'll just make do with what I have, kind of thing. So, yes. So, okay. At the interim of this, before I reveal the truth of what the name of episode 91 is. Okay. So one of the battles, I don't know if it would have either been in the midst of this or after, but the next battle would have been Neo-Mutant versus Zeo-Mutant. So, alright folks, time for some fun revelations here. Here we go. Okay. It's later revealed during the final battle that Zeo-Mutant, as he calls himself, is actually Flux from the TTA movie, back in a new form and seeking revenge. Since Flux was created by a large sum of negative emotions that Motherboard absorbed, Flux was technically the first shadow user ever made, and Zeo-Mutant is to Neo-Mutant such as what, say, Faxol is to Alpha. So during that fight, Zeo-Mutant would have morphed into a devilish Flux-like form, where he would have gotten like the crazy, spiky sort of things poking out of him. But he is quickly erased by an even more powerful old enemy. And Super Fighter was asking a question about who is the past enemy mentioned in Zeo-Mutant's bio. So by this point, our heroes would have been able to finally solve all the puzzles that open up the pyramid in the center of the fortress, and they enter into the inner sanctum of the base, where the kind of second half of this arc, which is episodes 91 through 96, would take place is inside the pyramid, the inner sanctum of Dark Eyes' lair. And the old enemy that, in fact, you know what? Hold on. The old enemy that would have reared its head, recompiled thanks to the last remaining virus fragments and Kageto, Dark Eyes and the Guild of Anubis incubated the return of Kagemamoru. Hence, the name of episode 91, The Return of Kagemamoru. And as you might have noticed in the opening of Season 4, a familiar-looking, giant, evil, black-looking, spiky hand comes out for Faxol to jump on top of the palm of. That was the intention. And much like how when the Debug Dragon absorbed the power of Motherboard and became the Super Debug with that new texture. Here we have the Super Kagemamoru, who absorbs the power of Flux, and by doing so, gives himself the ability to speak. This new souped-up version of Kagemamoru would have been able to actually speak and not just do roars and, you know, enter your mind or whatever. So, yeah. So Kagemamoru kills Flux / Neo Mutant, or sorry, Zeo Mutant, excuse me. So, that's how that would have gone. And so, quite fittingly in that sense, I might have even selfishly wanted to voice Kagemamoru myself. I can't remember. I don't know if I would have gotten somebody specific to voice him at that point. I can't recall. But yeah, so, who is the opponent? Okay, everybody, just for shits, because this would be fun, I want you to guess who gets to fight against the Super Kagemamoru in this episode. I want to see some theories. Zetto, Virus Fusion Alpha, Curb again, Nihilok. Interesting. Okay. Well, you've noticed that, yeah, our main heroes, other than Game Crasher, have not gotten to yes, VHS, it's you. You enter onto the scene and say, I'll destroy the virus. Since they both have such beef with that motherfucker, Alpha and Zetto, as Alpha Zet, combine their forces together to fight Kagemamoru. What I also envisioned for when I wanted to have this battle was I wanted to have sort of like a ring battle grid, like circling around Kagemamoru. There's a boss battle in one of the Strider games that is very similar to the way I envisioned. You fight this like big like Hydra dragon type of thing, if you've ever seen footage of that game before. It was kind of like that. That's what I envisioned, and I wanted to make him like really horrifying, like lots of extra spikes and all the glowy patterns and, you know, etc. That would have been fun to draw at some point. But just imagine like what Kagemamoru looked like in the original first season, but like on crack, like just this like really like, you know, Frieza transformed type of thing. And so, if I'm remembering correctly also, I believe that Alpha Zet would have also used a new weapon, the Vaccine Excalibur. This is basically, if you imagine that Star Saber looking kind of, what's it called? The big giant blade that Motherboard uses in the season 3 finale to fight against Alpha Zet, quite fittingly, they use basically like a positive, like a happier version of that sword with antivirus ability, and it's like this giant, like way bigger than they'd be able to, you know, like any human should be able to wield, because they're fighting this like giant monster, just like cleaving off whole pieces of it and just like absolutely just like wrecking his ass, right? And so, that leads in to episode 92. Alpha Zet has just wrecked Kagemamoru's shit. He's barely hanging on. He's just, you know, like this like, you know, just like all messed up and just like reduced to almost nothing but like this tiny little bit of virus power left. And so, episode 92. Deal with the devil. Alpha and Zetto unfuse their characters, and Alpha has another little heart-to-heart with Kagemamoru. And, so... Alpha decides to merge with Kagemamoru again and become his virus fusion state like he did in the Season 2 finale. Just bringing back all the old classic transformations. So,
I see some of you could figure out where I was going with this, of course. So, and in that same episode, Virus Fusion Alpha would have fought against Dark Eyes of Anubis' number 2, Ryoko. And so that would have been the big final battle for her at that point. And I'm trying to recall, let me go back and see if I had a note about anything. Yeah, I didn't have any other kind of particular other thing. Again, maybe I would have like improvised something for her to do, especially if I went with the idea of her like willingly being a second in command. Excuse me, and helping out with all that stuff. That's very highly possible. So, so Ryoko would have been defeated. Our heroes continue through the Inner Sanctum. I want to say that it's possible by this point, maybe, Neo Mutant, Majin, and Game Crasher would have all left. I think that either they would have left of their own accord, or they would have, or more likely, I think they would have been potentially, you know what, because of the whole rule where like, oh, if you get logged out, you can't log back into the game because of the way the Tome is set up right now. So I think that Game Crasher, Majin, Giga left of his own accord, and Neo Mutant, I think all of them would have been defeated and logged out at some point throughout the course of this whole thing. And I probably would have tried to give them like ceremonious, defeats, so that it wasn't just like, okay, they're gone, bye, because if that would have been their last moment, it would have had to be their last moment in the whole show, potentially. So, episode 93, moving on, Swords That Clash Forever. You can probably guess from the title of that one that the major battle of focus on that one was Kirbopher15 versus Legendary Frog. And also, the other one would have been Zetto versus Kaza. So, those two rivalries would have been both settled in that particular episode. Very possible that Dark Eyes kept... sorry, I've been saying Legendary Frog. Flashblade was what I mean. The Legendary Frog character. Flashblade might have been kept in the Inner Sanctum because maybe he knew that, he would have been like an extra hard sort of hit to Curb to really throw him off by doing that. So they have their fight. But, they have their last fight. I'm trying to remember if there was any other particular kind of thing to that. Perhaps just some, reconciling. Maybe a less cool version of the moment that I eventually wrote for Nilok and Maximor in the RPG. And Kaza, meanwhile, I remember would have been just like chipped away at as well until literally he was just like nothing but like a floating head. I like Frieza at the end of the Namek arc where he's just like a head and a floating piece of torso with an arm or something. Like Zetto just like beats him down and beats him down and beats him down, and eventually, and I'm trying to recall if like he also did some kind of like sacrificial sort of thing in order to like delay the plans other than just fighting to carry on or whatever. I don't recall if anything else further happened with that. So that was something. And our heroes continue deeper into the base. By this point, it is just our main heroes. It is Alpha, Kirbopher, Game Crazed, Nilok, Zetto, and Ruri. And of course, Flame Girl is nearby, still captured after all this time. Next episode, quite cleverly, episode 94, Double Dragons. This is a big one. The main fight of focus on this one is quite a big one.
Kirbopher15, Game Crazed, and Alpha versus Faxel and his 2 debug dragons. That would have been the big fight of that episode of 94. So yeah, that would have been a tremendous undertaking. And so time for another little quick revelation. And I've probably talked about this somewhere, and I've probably had I know that definitely in the show there was some implication of this, because Kirb was always like unsettled by Faxel. Faxel is the evil personality that would take over Kirbopher15. He is Kirbopher1111. Faxel is Kirbopher1111 as his own individual separate AI. It is that part of the debug, that very like battle-hungry kind of like sleazy side of him. And by the time that he absorbed the entire rest of the debug and became complete again, that other more kind of like, I must find and seek out the strong one, that very methodical one, that side of it is just so diminished that it didn't matter anymore. So, yeah. And this episode is where Faxel would have finally met his end. And as a result, okay, so here's the thing. In my outline here, I had a question from Superfighter06 about Zetto gaining purple flame form. So I think that I had 2 different ideas at some point of either Zetto getting the purple flame and becoming like a 1111 type form or whatever. But actually, from what I am seeing in my outline, actually, Kirbopher would have gotten the final blow on Faxel, and actually, it would have been a virus fusion Kirbopher. So Alpha would have had the power of Kagemaru, and Kirbopher would have had the power of the debug. So a controlled version of 1111, basically. And the 2 of them would have been like, the final 2 heroes working together, and as opposed to Alpha and Zetto. That seems to be what it was going to be. Maybe at some point along the way, I changed my mind and I wanted it to be Zetto getting the purple flame instead. But I think that at the time that I made this outline, it was intended to be Kirbopher. So here's a question, not that it matters because it's, yes, I know the DeviantArt said otherwise. Okay, so then you know what? Then this must have been the earlier draft. Because I'm gonna go into that when I get up to the X-Virus stuff. There'll be a lot to talk about. So, yeah, but that was what I had labeled at the time. So, and then I actually don't have a whole lot of information to give for the next 2, believe it or not. But we'll get to it here. So, okay, episodes 95, Dark Eyes of Anubis, and the last episode of this Newgrounds arc, episode 96, Battle On to the End. So, these 2 episodes would have been fully focused on Alpha versus Dark Eyes of Anubis. And the 2 of them would have fought with their danger helmets on. I had all sorts of different ideas for what Dark Eyes of Anubis... Basically, and I think I might have said this somewhere before as well, Dark Eyes of Anubis was intended to have basically like Egyptian god equivalents to all of Alpha's techniques that were named after and themed after Greek gods. That was the whole sort of concept of him. Yeah, that was... oh, and by the way, those of you who are taking notes, that's very kind of you. And also, this video will be archived, so you'll be able to go back and, sift through everything I've talked about, because I see there's some new folks joining the chat, which, hi, welcome. Yeah, let me go back to Dark Eyes here for a second. Let's see. Let me just go ahead and read through his whole thing here. So, okay. Hired by the Net Kings back during 2019 to work on Kagemaru for Ground Zero's final version. He was given the role of the 7th Net King for a short while, before being quietly fired from the project. Upon seeing the final release of the game as Tome, Dark Eyes was infuriated and quickly sought revenge. He created the debug to hack and dismantle the game, but it was unfinished and rebelled against him. However, EXE and Zetto's involvement with Kagemaru during the first 2 seasons worked out nicely with his plans. As he grew to understand the virtual technology that Webmaster and the others had made, he not only realized he hated it, but he hated all technology in the world and what it had transformed humanity into. There we go. By season 3, he set up Onidug's plans with the email he sent him in order to buy himself some time. With his original character data returned, thanks to Ryoko retrieving it, he retained much of his Net King administrative abilities and conducted a new experiment. He kidnapped 6 different people from their homes, 3 women and 3 men of various body types, ages, and physical abilities, and hooked them up to a deranged version of the virtual system the Net Kings made. He kept them in the basement of his own home, feeding them and allowing them to go to the bathroom, obviously, but otherwise keeping them against their will to play Tome in a fully integrated, realistic experience. Just how his viruses can directly affect the human mind, this experience of the game allowed them to feel any sort of direct feeling their character would have in-game. If they tried to rebel or go against his orders, he could easily kill them at any time. With the help of his newest creation, the X virus, he went directly for the beta testing zone of what was once called Ground Zero, or Newgrounds, an island region called Newgrounds. There it is. He formed a large pyramid-like base inside the island, along with a dark underground section made especially for his virus creations. Then, with his Guild of Anubis, he began to slowly but surely take revenge upon the Net Kings and their game. He eventually meets Alpha face-to-face near the very end of Season 4, and the two have an incredible fight amongst each other. Important detail, only thanks to the previously captured Flame Girl are the two able to silence him for good. So Alpha and Flame Girl together would have fought against Dark Eyes of Anubis in these last couple episodes. So there's that. That was Flamey's big fight. Was getting to fight alongside Alpha against this big major villain of the game. So of the show. However, so let's talk about Xirra. Xirra, spelled Xirra, who is the X-Virus core original program. This girl character with this sort of Xbox-looking green armor that she had. Here's what I've got to say about her. The single most powerful virus character in the series, far surpassing the strength of Kagemaru, the Debug, and Flux. Xirra, also known simply as the X-Virus. If you can't tell what she's supposed to be a reference to by the look of her color scheme and armor, then this character was made long before TTA existed, during the days of my hatred for the Xbox out of spite. And that was when she was simply called X. X is Dark Eyes' greatest creation and was the closest thing to him reaching the artificial intelligence level that the Net Kings found in Motherboard. In turn, the X-Virusites, Kaza and Fauna, were both spawned from her original data. Kagemaru and the Debug were both simply virtual machines with a strict purpose to destroy, while Xirra is capable of feeling emotions. I would say that's actually debatable, because I feel like the other, virus characters kind of grew to emote in various ways as well, so... despite the fact that there are very little emotions that she has, she was one of those, very quiet, soft-spoken type, things. It takes the persistence and love, for lack of a better word, of Flame Girl, who was captured and forced into the same area as her, to help open Xirra's eyes and take action. So, what I intended was that while Flamey was kidnapped and stuffed into this area where Xirra is, she talks about how she loves Alpha. And that does remind me of something, but I'm going to pull up a particular song. after this battle is over here. Flamey would have basically tried to educate Sierra on what love really means for human beings. And over the course of the episodes of this arc, while she's captured, she would be more and more kind of like properly illustrating what it means. And Sierra would like, you know, come to understand and see that this was the case. And just kind of through the inspiration of, you know, seeing this and everything. And trying to get my ducks in a row because I want to make sure that I do this correctly here. Right. Okay. So let me remember the order of events that happen. Dark Eyes is defeated. I'm playing a song from Inuyasha because, as you guys know, I used quite a bit of Inuyasha music, especially in Season 2. And this remix of Dearest, one of the ending themes, was what I intended to use for this particular scene. So Alpha and Dark Eyes both use the danger helmets so that, you know, they're going to be feeling it in real life. And so when Alpha and Flamey both defeat him, Dark Eyes is pounded to a fucking pulp and is hurt very badly. But he's defeated and taken down. He gives his final order to Sierra to go back to Tome and exact his revenge on the Net Kings and destroy Tome once and for all. Meanwhile, Alpha and Flamey, who are both very tired from this battle, and are both able to experience real feelings and, you know, real sensations through the game because of the danger helmets. And after going through this, you know, life-threatening experience, I intended during this moment, during this episode, they were going to kiss. I had them kiss briefly in the TTA movie. This was going to be the I love you scene. This was going to be my stereotypical, very childish, very, you know, stereotypical main guy and main girl eventually get together thing. That whole sub-storyline would have finally come to pass. They finally would have expressed their feelings for each other, etc. You know, I was a teenager when I came up with it. I think that what I came up with for what I took from the elements of this idea and put in the end of 2011, that big climactic moment where they kiss in the last episode, I think was a tremendously better executed way of doing that than it was than what I would have done in, you know, this in TTA, at least in my opinion. So yeah. Then, okay. So we enter, finally, the 4-part series finale. The final little mini arc at the end of the series, the X-Virus arc. So, our heroes, I believe, head back to Tome. Oh, I need to find exactly where this was. Oh, here it is. I forgot to read the rest of Zira's whole thing. And in fact, hold on, there's also a particular song that I need to get. Okay. So, just to repeat a little bit. It takes the persistence and love, for lack of a better word, of Flame Girl, who was captured and forced into the same area as her to help open Sierra's eyes and take action. However, these actions end up having a huge negative backlash on our heroes, as she uses the incentive to follow her master's orders out of love for him, and attacks the main servers of Tome, just as Alpha's crew thought their battle with the Guild of Anubis was over. The users are powerless to defend against her attacks, and Alpha and Flamey eventually show up to take the heat of the battle, while Zetto and the rest of the group are still trapped in Newground's basement at this point. Zira's powers are mostly physical attacks, such as slashes from her claws and spikes, but she also possesses 2 elemental blades made up of fire and ice that she can form her arms into. So, I don't remember exactly how I intended for Alpha and Flamey to get back to Tome before the rest of the gang are able to. Maybe I would have adjusted that so that they all just kind of are able to somehow, like, follow her through some sort of, like, teleportation path to just get back there and not having to go through the, you know, the ship to travel there and everything. But those of you who like Guilty Gear, Robokai's theme, Vortex Infinitum. I'm going to play this because for years of my life, I imagined Zira unleashing this kind of, like, beastly, scary, like, visceral version of herself, and screeching to the heavens as she emerges from this, like, X-shaped sort of crater that, like, she burrows out of the ground of Tome and rises up. Come on. Slowly she rises up. Our heroes all stand around to face her. And she looks up and screeches to the heaven. And the entire island of Tome is shaking and quivering at her screech. And set to the rest of this song, I would have had our heroes trying desperately to fight against her. So that battle would have lasted through episode 97, X, the Ultimate Virus, is how that would have gone. Then, it gets worse. When the rest of Alpha's group finally reaches the site of the battle with Zira, she retreats into the form of a giant chrysalis with a shell made from the remnants from the remains of the X-Virusites. After lying in wait and preparing for an even more incredible fight, Webmaster reactivates a function that Flux used once long ago, and converts all of Tome into one giant battle grid. This allows the Fallout Shelter, their ultimate antivirus defense, to grow even larger than before, and sets the stage for, supposedly, one last fight. The cocoon hatches, and out rises Zira's transformed stage. Virus Fusion Alpha, and I have it written in here, Virus Fusion Alpha and Virus Fusion Zetto take the stage, and battle against the gargantuan new opponent in an epic fight, and succeed in taking her massive arms off with an incredible double super attack. So, yeah, they fight this giant, like, kaiju version of Zira that is, you know, hatched from this chrysalis thing. This would have happened, particularly during episode 98, Final Form / Final Boss. That would have been the full name of the episode of 98. Zira's second form's only strength is its size and power, making it little good against the strength of Alpha and Zetto, or Kirbopher's, transformed states. However, once stripped of her arms, a most unusual activity happens back at the site of Alpha and Dark Eye's previous duel. Dark Eyes, battered and bruised in real life from the battle, drags his own body into a machine and converts his very brain signals into virtual data, fully fusing himself with his own character. The character's body dissipates, and its bits of data travel at high speeds to the site of the battle with Zira for one final stand. In his last resort, as we enter the penultimate. Episode 99. The 7 Virtual Heroes. It's never over until it's over. In his last resort, Dark Eyes of Anubis, now fully integrated into virtual reality, fuses... Hold on, I know the better music that I need to use for this. Hold on. There we go. That's better. In his last resort, Dark Eyes of Anubis, now fully integrated into virtual reality, fuses with his own creation, and out from the gashes of Zira's severed arms fly some sharp wires that stab into Alpha and Zetto or Kirbopher's characters, absorbing the powers of Kagemamoru and the Debug back. Kagemamoru on the left arm, and the Debug Dragon on the right arm. Zira still at the torso, and the majority of the head, and Dark Eyes at the remainder of the head and brain. Together, they are the true last obstacle of the game. The ultimate Dark Eyes virus. Dark Eyes plans to use his incredible newfound powers to finally initiate his plan. By obliterating every single virtual dimension the Net Kings have created all at once, Project Osiris reaches its long-awaited pinnacle. Kirbopher, Flame Girl, Game Crazed, Nylok, and Ruri ascend the top of the Fallout shelter and stand by Alpha and Zetto. It's those 7. Not one to stand back and watch everything crumble. Motherboard releases an incredible amount of antivirus energy that is released through the Fallout shelter and fuses with all the characters standing at its surface. And so, Alpha, Kirbopher, Flame Girl, Game Crazed, Nylok, Ruri, and Zetto become the 7. They all receive new, sparkling, rainbow energy motherboard-style super forms. Our heroes fly up into the air where Dark Eyes awaits, and the final battle begins. The 3 viruses are no match against Motherboard's new dream team of warriors, and the final boss is completely obliterated by the 7's final onslaught. So, that would have been the last battle of that entire arc. And, that's not the boys, it's 7. I should also mention, by the way, I definitely intended for, I think at least the last 5 episodes, when I was planning on actually doing this, I think that I did in fact want all of these episodes to be fully voiced, because they were all like important enough in terms of moments that they had that I felt it would be necessary to do that, which would have been quite a bit of work. It would have been insane. Yeah. So I would have made these like full productions, like, you know, the other stuff that I was doing, and like how the other season finales in the movie were and everything. That was the plan at that time, right? So yeah, I then let me shift back a little bit to where we were before. Get some different music before I go to the real end stuff. So, as Dark Eyes of Anubis is caught in the explosion of the 7's final antivirus attack, Dark Eyes is both infuriated and amazed by the skill of his opponents, to which right after, Zira appears behind him, embracing her master with newfound love for him, as the two of them are both incinerated by the virtual destruction and put to rest. I imagined it being one of those, like, you know, Gundam, like, end of Gundam type things, where there's all these characters kind of floating in space naked, communicating with each other psychically or whatever. Often a staple of Gundam. You know, they die as she embraces him from behind and everything, kind of thing. Dark Eye's body is found dead by Giga, still attached to the machine he used for the interface. His brain activity has already long since deceased. Giga frees all of the captured members of the Guild of Anubis. And our heroes saved Tome at long last. Fallout Shelter lets down what remains of Tome after all the horrible destruction is, left over. Our heroes breathe a tremendous collective sigh of relief. And there we are. Allow me a moment. Because we ain't done. Finally. Episode 100. Ultimate Creature the Second. A short time would have passed after our heroes have saved the virtual world and everyone in it and put an end to this last threat. It is decided that Tome is going to be shut down for good. In the wake of everything that had happened, it felt appropriate that they cease keeping it open because they don't want to have any more crazy hacker people come back and try to do some insane shit that will hurt everybody. Technology has evolved too fast. Perhaps a lesson that we could all learn in this day of our 2023. So, those of you who might remember, during Season 2, there was an episode called The History of Tome, where this little tiny character with silver hair and bright yellow eyes and a little tiny cloak appeared onto the scene and was giving this sort of documentary about the creation of Tome, right? This character's name is Bite. So, in the final episode of the series, in episode 100, Alpha would have received a letter from a mysterious fan that asks, hey, late at night, can we meet in this, sorry. No, I remember now. Hold on. Let me go back. Okay. The Net Kings decide to host one last tournament for our heroes. And they allow everyone we know to hold a host of preliminaries. And after the bracket of the best virtual fighters are chosen on which characters will be fighting against each other in this tournament. Excuse me. They once again say, okay, before the tournament happens, we will be officially closing down the game itself for everybody to be like not able to come back into the game again. So the day before the tournament takes place, Alpha is sent a mysterious message from a fan of his that says, hey, could you meet me at this particular spot, the little waiting area at the base of the Z Tournament Stadium? Can you meet me here tonight after all of the other users have logged off? Alpha decides to come alone. At this point, Tome is completely empty, except for Alpha and this mysterious person. It turns out to be Bite. And Bite reveals his identity. Bite is, in fact, the amalgamation of all data that has ever existed since the creation of the internet, given form as a being. You could say that in a certain sense, he is the true sort of parent to the likes of Motherboard or even the virus AI. It all stems from him. From it, actually. It doesn't necessarily have a gender, but Byte is probably beyond gender. It's a tremendous construct. Yeah. Byte has existed since the beginning of the internet and is a consciousness that is from the collective data of everything, of everyone that's ever existed, that's ever entered any information, and especially after Tome, created data from thought and kind of personified, something close to true AI. So Byte challenges Alpha to one last battle, saying, I would like to personally have a battle with you with the entirety of Tome as our battlefield. With no one else to get hurt. No one could get hurt anyway, just for fun. Absolutely no holds barred, like anything and everything you could possibly do. I would love to have a fight with you. And Alpha says, I'd be honored. And so they have a 3-phase boss fight. And let me go back to where I need to be getting to. Where is it? Come on. I saw it before. Hold on. There it is. Here's what I envisioned. Phase 1. Byte transforms into this sort of, drifter version of himself with this tattered kind of, clothing. Almost like a homeless person that could somehow, kick your ass with martial arts. And they have a very simple kind of, but still badass martial arts fight right down there in the what's it called in that little waiting area of the Z Tournament Stadium. Phase 2, because again I was a teenager and it was 2006. He evolves into a full adult form where he gets probably something akin to like an Organization 13 graphic jacket. And they then shift to a battle grid where they're kind of on one of those sort of scrolling battle grids, kind of like the battle that Alpha had against Tormentros in the debug headquarters, as well as the fight against Flux in the movie. Just them having this giant battle grid where they're going everywhere, and etc. And Phase 3. Byte transforms into a sort of remixed, adult, bodied, muscular version of Season 1 Alpha. And their battlefield is the entire island of Tome. They are full-on DBZ, blasting and flying around all sorts of areas and doing all this shit, etc. Imagine, if you will, at the end of Original Z, when Goku flies off with Oob, and he says, to Vegeta, we're gonna have a fight someday, and he's like, you and I would need a whole planet to have our battle that we need. It's kind of like that. And you see every old area they'd ever been to, basically. And finally, at long last, with one big, vicious Vulcan fist, Alpha defeats the avatar of the internet itself. He sees his victory. Byte wishes him luck in the future, and says, as long as there are people like you, perhaps the internet will continue to be a safe place. Then some of you guys have seen an illustration that I did. In fact, let me see if I can put it up on screen real quick. There it is. So this was a post. What? Oh, whoops. This was a poster that I did many years ago, back in, what would it have been? 2008. I did this poster. God damn it! Stop, you fucking moron. So you can see here that I had basically every single character, and by the way, there's Bite. If you can see him in the center there, he's between right underneath Zetto's metal arm is Bite. That's him in his like base little child form. So yeah, this illustration that I did was actually meant to be the last thing that you would see in the show. Tome is officially set to be taken offline 1 week after the deletion of all 3 of Dark Eyes' viruses. The Net Kings, in this last week of time, conduct one final tournament open to all players of the game before their virtual world is shut down. At the very end of the episode, it fast forward to an undetermined part of the tournament. Who knows what part of the bracket it might be part of. Alpha walks past his closest friends, who all were part of the, the tournament bracket. He walks past his closest friends as they see him into the area. The audience is composed of every character in the series that isn't banned, in jail, hospitalized, or dead by that point. Zetto stands tall, ready to take on his online rival in the fair, all-out final battle they've sworn they would have for practically forever. They charge in and lock fists as the screen freezes and zooms out to show this picture. And in big bold letters, the end. You would not know what the outcome of the battle was. Get fucked. And that, folks, is what TTA Season 4 Ground Zero would have been. There you have it. So, before we go, a few things. Let me go through just a couple other questions that we had, because I want to answer everything that was posted on the Patreon post there. And thank you guys, all of you, by the way, who were kind enough to do that. Looking back at the series, are there any TTA characters that you wish you were able to bring into either the 2011 Tome series or the RPG, but didn't make the cut? I would have loved, at some point, to do something with Dark Eyes of Anubis. I had different ideas for what the 2011 and RPG equivalent of that character could have been, and that would have been really cool to find a way to make that work somehow. Had I continued past the points where I cut off in the story. But the fact of the matter is, it didn't happen. And I think that, if anything, I just kind of take that as a sign of, okay, you know what? I think it just wasn't meant to be. I think that those characters in that arc and those ideas, they weren't meant to be. but it would have been cool to execute a version of Dark Eyes of Anubis, maybe a version of the Kaza character. But that's, you know, as far as the new characters go, I even had an idea for Majin and Bokuden potentially as well. Some of those guys, you know, there were different ideas that I had played around with. But yeah. Ben Bob asked, when revisiting... Oh, by the way, sorry, Kudo Tsurugi asked that question I just answered a second ago. Ben Bob asked, when revisiting the series, is there something that I'm proud of? And what advice would I give to my younger self while making TTA? Honestly, advice I would have given was maybe just having it be voiced and condensing it to be not a million episodes, like producing it more like the way that I did the 2011 show. But that's the thing, is I did the 2011 show the way that I feel I kind of just should have done TTA from the start, and it's just better quality than any of that, you know what I mean? But something that I am proud of, that said, on the opposite end of that spectrum, and especially looking back at the later season 2 episodes and all the season 3 episodes, I was pretty good at pacing out plots into full half-hour episodes like a real TV show. And not to say that the plots were all that good and the writing was all that good and the characters were all that good, because they weren't, to be honest. But it was the fact that I just, like, managed to pull it off at all. That I'm like, yeah, I think I'm kind of proud of, you know, that I managed to do that, you know? I think that's kind of neat. And it was all sort of a guiding force into what I would be able to do later on that was of much better quality, you know what I mean? So, yeah. Also, I need to use the bathroom again real quick. So give me just one moment. I'm gonna pause. I'll be right back in a sec. Back. Alrighty. Let's see, what else we have for some other questions that we got. Answered all of Super Fighter's questions. Oh, okay. Crete asked, did you ever consider continuing it for the past couple of years? Not in animation, but as a comic or anything else. Okay. So I think that as we're wrapping up here, I'm going to talk about some last few things to just sort of settle it all, you know? So, back in 2006, 2007, as I was finishing up high school, I had been doing animation and stuff on Newgrounds for a few years by that point. My life was changing a lot. My priorities were changing a lot. I was thinking a lot more about my future. As a lot of you all know, I intended to end the show. I intended to keep doing the episodes, as time went on. But I had also started to gain success on Newgrounds doing things like Parody Rangers, the Mario RPG Lost Forest video, the Nintendo collab, stuff like that. And even though oh, right, you asked sorry. No, Nylok would not have had like a being real for a sec moment because he didn't. That wasn't part of his personality, so it didn't apply to him in the same way that the later Nyloks went. Sorry, I forgot about that last one, Super Fighter. Appreciate it. Yeah, I just was realizing, like, you know what? I just don't want to keep doing this specifically anymore because it's not bringing me joy and it's not bringing me success. And I know that I've always said this. I've always said this. I know that doing things like that should be about passion and not about oh, I'm in it for the money or the popularity. But the fact of the matter was, the other animation projects that I was doing, and not even to say that any of those were any good, like Parody Rangers and Nintendo collabs are very mid in terms of like my writing and animation and stuff. Like the other people I worked with on animation on the Nintendo collabs were more talented than I was. But I just, that stuff was becoming more successful for me. I was making money off of it. I was, meeting other colleagues as a result. I was, becoming more known as a creator for that stuff. And I'm not reveling that as in oh, I'm so proud that my, crappy video game parodies got me noticed. But they were a step that led me to here. And the fact of the matter is, continuing to do Tome episodes, especially when I wasn't passionate about doing it anymore, it would not, maybe we wouldn't be here right now. I don't know. I feel like even though it sucks that I know it was left unfulfilled, it was the choice that I really sincerely needed to make for my life at that point. It really was. And I still feel that way even now. Because to answer the question about have I ever thought about, yes, I had thought about what if I did find a way to continue it. There were different things. There were different ideas. Way back, I had thought about doing an episode 74 and 75 that would have basically abridged the entire story of season 4 into a pair of wacky Parody Ranger style comedy videos. And I actually even wrote the full scripts for those, and I recorded some of the actors for it. I think that Kira recorded Motherboard and Ernie, and my friend Mark Swint recorded Kaza, and I might have recorded some stuff for Kirbopher and Zetto, maybe. I don't remember. But then I realized that the fans were not happy with the idea of having the show concluded with two goofy comedy videos. So I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm not even going to bother doing this. I also considered doing a video where I would have, a video where I would have just explained it like this. And then I ended up not doing that. I did that other Q&A thing that I mentioned years ago that's kind of lost to time. But I never considered doing it a webcomic because, I'll be totally honest, I don't like doing comics. I really, really, really do not like doing comics. I have tons of respect for people that do comics. I think that because they're fantastic. I enjoy comics as a reader, not as an illustrator. I do not enjoy working in that medium, and I've tried. I tried doing, at one point, actually, when I was really young, I tried doing Balancing Act as a comic, and I just found very quickly, I'm like, no, I'd rather, my heart's in animation. And on that note, yeah, when I did that April Fool's thing a couple years ago, I was looking at this as how difficult would it be for me to do the rest of the episodes? But I don't want to do that. I really don't. I would be continuing a story that, as you've seen from the last 3 hours of me talking about it, a story that's not actually that good. a story that I made 15 to 18 years ago. I've moved on to other things, and I've grown as a creator, and I've grown as a person, that my heart is just not in that anymore. And frankly, even if I just did it for the novelty of just like wrapping up the show, the fact of the matter is, like, even putting all the time into it and shit, it wouldn't, you know, looking again. Okay. When I was a kid, you could make an argument that like, oh, why did you stopped doing this because you were focused on popularity and money and whatever. And I'm like, yeah, and maybe you could make an argument that like back then that wasn't necessary. But my argument now is, yeah, I do need to be spending time on things that are actually going to bring me success and money, because I gotta live. I'm an adult that has bills to pay, you know? Like, I'll be honest, I'm jumping on the Mario RPG train right now because a lot of people associate me with that game, and I know that I can potentially get more subscribers and followers and Patreon supporters and just ad revenue and etc. I'm being completely transparent by doing Mario RPG content. So, but at the very bare minimum, it's also like I'm extremely passionate and I love that game so much. So I'm enjoying myself doing like the Mario RPG music video and the stream, the charity stream we're going to be doing coming up soon, which I'll have details about that soon, and all that kind of stuff. You know, it's all because I love doing it, but it is also because like, hey, I got a channel to keep up, I got money that I got to make. If I want to continue to support, and then say, for example, doing the stuff that I really want to do, I'm done with Tome. I'm done with Tome. That's the truth, is I'm done with Tome. With the exception of potentially Mac and I doing the rest of Hard Reset, which would be something canon to 2011. That's it. I'm done. I have given the endings that I set out to give, and the other stuff that I came up with after where 2011 ended and where the RPG ended was maybe if it's so successful that it warranted me doing that, but the fact is, it isn't. The fact is, Tome has never been a tremendous success. TTA wasn't, 2011 wasn't, and even now the RPG isn't. It doesn't mean that I don't love it. It doesn't mean that it's not very important to me. It doesn't mean that the fact that you guys and gals and everybody in between that loves Tome so much, that doesn't erase the fact that I appreciate you all. And it's something that, hell, even looking back on these TTA episodes, you know, looking at my own cringe, I still was like, you know what? I look fondly on these things. And this was a really, really fun time in my life and a very important part of my life to do this show. But I'm done with Tome. I want to move on with my life. I want to move on to other things. I want to move on to Balancing Act, quite frankly. I'm ready to tackle my magnum opus project. That's what I want. That's what I really, really, really want. And my intention is, come next year, I will. I really hope. I really, really sincerely hope that that will be the case. So, with that said, we're pretty much at the end, folks. I got a question from Tradcore just a minute ago asking if someone wanted to flesh out the concepts in a fan-made comic or fanfic, would that be alright? I'll say this. If you guys want to do fan art and fan productions and things, that's very flattering. I am always appreciative of fan art and anything like that. That's very kind. The only thing that I will ask that you not do, if it's okay to say so, I would really appreciate it if you didn't continue it as an animation. If you want to write fan fiction or make comics or draw art or anything of the TTA Season 4 characters and interpret stuff, I don't ever want to stunt anybody's creativity. And I know that after hearing all this stuff, like I think that that's great that you guys are so into it. Absolutely, I really genuinely appreciate it. I only ask, if you don't mind, as this is my one wish regarding this, is don't continue it as an animation. Admittedly, that is one of those, like, if I can't do it, then I don't want anybody else to do it type of situations. I fully admit that. But I ask that you do please respect those wishes of mine, and let the show itself be finished with. So I hope that that's all right. But otherwise, I hope that you all continue to keep all 3 incarnations of Tome, regardless of which one is your favorite, whether it's TTA or the 2011 Tome series with its new ending, or the RPG, if you've managed to get the 100% ending on that. I really appreciate you all. I do. It's been a crazy ride for 18, technically longer than that, because these characters have existed since before I did the show. I created the first versions of these characters back in maybe 2002 or 3. So this has been 20 years of my 34, almost 35 years of existence. I'm going to be 35 at the end of this year of my life. And, it hasn't been perfect. There's been, bittersweet things and losses and drama and stuff along the way of these 3 incarnations. But at the end of the day, there's stories that I've created myself, and they're all about love and trust and relationships that you forge with people on the internet. So I hope that at the very core of what the terrain of magical expertise is, no matter what form it takes, I hope that those kind of core themes about the people in your life that you trust and that you love, and the things that you fight for, are still prevalent. So, before we end for today, I have one last little gift for you all that I'm going to play. A gentleman that I worked with many years ago, he went by Delta Strata. He voiced a character in the second Parody Rangers movie. There was that Xbox, Wii, and PlayStation 3 bot, and he was like, "I'm the most powerful. I have 16 gigs and awesome graphics," or something. Delta. He was a friend of mine at the time that I knew from the Fallout shelter, and he actually went ahead and he composed a unique remix of Believe, which was the Gundam Seed third opening from the Gundam Seed anime series, Mobile Suit Gundam Seed, which now I've worked on, funnily enough, and which I used as the Season 4 opening. And he did a remix of Believe that was intended for me to use during the final battle of the 7 versus the Ultimate Dark Eyes virus. So, as we cap things out, I'm going to head off and I'm going to play that remix for you guys. That's my last little gift, my last little bit of Season 4 material for you all that I really sincerely hope you enjoy. Thank you for joining me for this 3.5 hours of talking about all this stuff. This was so much fun, seriously. This was such a dream come true. Not a dream come true necessarily, but it was, no, you know what? It was a long time coming. I'll say that. It was a long time coming, and I'm grateful to you all. So, thank you, everyone. Please enjoy. And otherwise, last little plug. I have a Patreon-voted Curblog that's coming out on Tuesday. It was my review of the Guillermo del Toro Pinocchio animated feature. If you would like to support my future animated productions, including stuff like Balancing Act, please consider subscribing to my Patreon. Literally even as little as $1 a month helps me get by through everything. And I can't wait to continue to produce more awesome projects for you guys. I hope that you will enjoy Balancing Act. It's something that's incredibly meaningful to me. It's even more meaningful than any version of Tome has ever been, and I sincerely mean that. So look forward to that, and enjoy the Delta remix of Believe, which was by Nami Tamaki. This remix by the lovely Mr. CJ Oxenberry. Take care, everybody, and I will see you all on the battle grid.